Okay, if we can come to order, please. This is the City of Pullman regular March meeting of the Planning Commission. Begin by calling roll. Chair John Anderson is here. Frank Harper.
Here.
Scott Hodge.
Here.
Jeff Joswick Jones. Here. Joe Callahan.
Here.
Lorena English.
Here.
Angela Taylor.
Here.
We have a full house tonight. Great. Okay, the first item for business is the minutes of the regular meeting of February 25, 2026. Does anybody have any comments, questions, additions, deletions, etc.? Motions? Yeah.
There was a typo in there someplace. See if I can find it.
Yeah, there was, I noticed a typo, but,
Taylor.
yeah.
Yeah, his suggestion is to tailor that training. Oh, instead of tailor? Yeah. You spelled it T-I-L-E-R.
Yeah.
Instead of T-A-I-L-O-R.
Yeah.
Small thing.
Okay. We have a motion.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Lorena. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Lorena that to accept the minutes as amended and prepared by staff. Second from Joe. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we have minutes. Oops, wait a minute. Next item of business is a regular to conduct a public hearing on municipal code changes regarding recent state laws. Now, is this a legislative public hearing?
Yes.
Beg pardon?
Yes. Is this on?
Then we have rules.
Oh, do you, can I?
I meant to, I'm sorry, I meant to call them up on my computer and I just completely forgot.
Yeah. No.
This is a legislative public hearing. Some of you might be familiar with non-judicial hearings, which are quite different. So we do have rules for legislative public hearings. This is called such a hearing because it is designed to solicit citizen comments on a matter of general significance to the community. 1, each person who speaks at this hearing shall register their name and address on the roster that is located at the speaker's table. I think you're all familiar with that. 2, no person, including any commission member, shall speak until they have been recognized by the chair and have identified themselves. 3, no person shall address the commission except at the speaker's table and using the microphone. 4, the first time an individual speaks, they shall identify themselves, giving their address and the nature of their interest in the matter. 5, the chair may impose time limits on each speaker depending on the total number of individuals wishing to speak. 6, anyone at the public hearing who has physical evidence of any kind, letters, photos, maps, etc., shall submit that evidence to the staff advisor or secretary to be entered into the record at the time it is presented to the commission. Documents should be submitted in at least 2 copies suitable for copying and distribution. 1 copy shall be for the staff and the other copy will be for distribution to the commission members. 7, speakers are discouraged from reading verbatim any letters that are already in the public hearing record, although it is acceptable for speakers to summarize such letters during their comments. 8, the chair, when appropriate, may take questions from commission members or the audience regarding a speaker's presentation. The individual with a question to ask shall wait until the speaker finishes and then direct that question to the chair. 9, public hearings shall be continued at a later date at 11 p.m. unless a majority of the quorum present accept an extension of a finite period of time. 10, the hearing will open with a staff report. So we begin with the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Washington State Legislation over the past few years has enacted a variety of different laws that affect the city of Pullman. So it's mainly in RCW 35, which is cities and towns, and then RCW 35A, which is optional codes, even though they're mandatory. So we have a fun little change of words there. So this is 5 different, I believe it's 5, different RCWs that have been enacted over the last few years that we have to bring our code into compliance with. So as you see, there's some infill development within existing buildings that we are adding to the code. We can't regulate kind of outdoor encampments, parking efforts, overnight shelters on land that's owned by religious organizations, allowing transitional and permanent supportive housing, emergency shelters in various zoning districts. What's the next one. Oh, allowing the siting of organic material facilities in conjunction with the county. And so we've allowed it in our industrial zone per the state law that came out. And then updating our parking to meet the state requirements for what required parking for the parking that we can require. So these are all various RCWs that have various enacting times, but we figured might as well just get them in one fell swoop. And so this is before the commission to discuss.
Okay, does anybody on the commission have questions for the staff?
I just have a comment. Because on let's see, attachment D, I was really surprised when I read it and it said that the governor had vetoed section 7 since section 7 was ADUs. So it turns out it's a typo and it's really section 5. Sorry, it's really petty, but I was like, what?
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I understand, is there anything in the red lines that is flexible or subject to interpretation or anything else, or is it, my understanding is this pretty much direct mandate from the state, and we haven't done anything different and there's no flexibility. Is that a correct assessment, or have we done anything above and beyond or tweaked?
Nope. It was just looking at the RCW, what it said, and figuring out where in the code it would apply. There might have been something with the temporary housing to emergency shelters to permanent supportive housing about allowing them in zones where hotels and motels are allowed, or in a majority of residential, and I think I just did all residential and zones that hotels and motels are allowed in.
Okay.
Just so there wasn't any chance of discrepancy between the two.
So would it be a correct summary to say that, I mean, the changes, especially on the parking, are significant. They're not insignificant changes. They are significant changes.
Correct.
But at the same time, this is more of a somewhat administrative exercise because it's been handed to us and there's not a lot we can do other than to make sure we understand it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. The one question I had is in the document, in the red lines, this is on page, well, it starts on page 32 and continues to 33. And it's the exceptions for off-street parking. It's item number 7. And then underneath that is the A through H. And A is C2, Central Business District, and then residence is under 1,200, commercial areas under 3,000. That's fine. But where I stumbled when we got to D, and it says affordable housing, and then E is senior housing. We don't define those anywhere in our code. Is that correct?
Correct.
Are those defined, like, when somebody looks at this and says affordable housing, that's the one that caught my eye because we hear that term a lot, right? So is there a definition of that? There's not a definition in the city code. Is there a definition in RCW or something?
Yes, so
Once we get to like F is child care centers as defined in RCW 43-216-010, stuff like that. I was just wondering if on, specifically on D and E, affordable housing and senior housing, if we needed to have some type of definition on those.
we could add a definition. I mean, senior housing is pretty standard. I think it's 55 and plus for like the senior housing we currently have, just basing it off of like fancy free, like that community. But I know affordable housing, typically in the RCWs where it references affordable housing, it's affordable housing as defined. Oh, I can't pull that RCW just off the top of my head. I know it's 3670A under the growth management. They have like their definitions. I want to say it's like
Okay.
050. But we can verify that. Typically, it's you have to have some kind of agreement that you will be doing affordable housing over this time frame. You will not charge more than that 30%, the annual income of the tenants to be that affordable housing.
Okay. Yeah, that was my only concern is I think those two terms, affordable housing and senior housing, those terms are used differently by different people in different groups. If you took 10 people and put them in a room, they may not all have the same definition. So did we need to have a definition either in our Chapter 17, or if we needed to reference some other external something? That'd be my only comment on this, if that's something we need to add.
Before we go further, I'm going to quibble more than Brent is about senior housing, and in particular, there is a definition of retirement home in this code. It's in the definitions, it's number 114. Is there a distinction between the two? I'm not sure I really need an answer tonight, but I just want to point out that, you know, I get a little excited when people start talking about us seniors as if we're all poor and decrepit. Believe me, it's not all true. But I understand that there are places that restrict housing to people who are age. I think the retirement home definition is age 50 and over. So anyway, I would like to see, I agree with Brent, I'd like to see a definition of that.
We can change senior housing, we can say senior housing, comma, retirement homes.
Okay, but
Or
that,
defined as retirement homes per Pullman City Code 1705.
it's in this same chapter. It's in the definitions. Retirement home is in the definitions. Okay.
I'm just concerned that, you know, for example, if it's not defined, that could create challenges. Somebody comes in and they want to develop part of Military Hill, and they say, well, we're going to call this senior housing, and our definition of senior housing is anybody over 45, and therefore we're exempt from all parking regulations per this section because we've deemed this to be senior housing. And I'm not sure that we'd be able to, well, it'd probably be an argument, but it seems like we could head that off by defining things. Do those two, did this wording come straight out of that 5184?
Yep.
Okay.
It's straight from the RCW.
So they must have. I'd be more in favor of referring to existing state definitions of those terms than coming up with our own definitions of those terms and sticking our own definitions of 17. I just cross-reference it back to RCW, I think would be helpful.
Mr. Chair. It's fascinating. Brent and I ended up on those same two things. So I was waiting for it to see if he found the one other thing that I did, but apparently I'm on my own here. Page 38, Ariel. Page 38, where
Okay.
we get down into apartments or condominiums, and then there's a whole list of 3 or 4 units, 5 to 8, 9, and the entire group there went to half of something per bedroom. Up above, we say 1 space per unit. On this one, it's just half of something per bedroom. And I know there's no footnote on this one. So maybe my first comment is it seems like it should say half of a space per, I assume it's a space, right? A parking space?
Oh, space is missing. Okay, I was like, well, it says per unit. I thought you were saying the per part was missing.
No.
So,
But it should be half of a parking
Yep.
space, right? Per unit. And then I started thinking, well, before when we had 3/4 of a space per bedroom, and I think it, you round up. So if we had a bedroom, we'd round up to 1 full parking space. But here it seems pretty clear, it's just half. It's going to be half no matter how big the unit is.
correct.
Half.
Yep.
What do I do with half?
Well, we still round up. So that's why single-family homes, it's the single parking stall. And then once you get into apartments and multifamily, that's when it goes up to the half a unit, or half a space per unit, because you're going to have
Okay.
more than 1 unit.
All right, so if this said half of a space per unit, yeah, I'd be fine with that.
The footnote is on the column header all the way up. It's footnote number 7.
Yeah, okay. So then no matter, so for the first row where it says, let's just say we had 4 units per building, then that would be 2 parking spaces total for the building.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think then it's clear if we just added space in there.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one who struggles with the word unit. One house is a unit, one apartment is a unit, one manufactured home is a unit.
Yes.
Okay. And you're satisfied that it's clear?
We can add dwelling if you'd like, per dwelling unit.
We use dwelling unit down below. It might be more consistent.
Yeah.
Unless you say, afterwards to refer to just as unit.
Yeah, you use the word household units at the very top of the page, and then it becomes just unit. I would say dwelling unit would be better.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
we've talked over the months or years, I guess, about having a really big conversation about parking. This isn't the only opportunity to talk about parking, is it? Are we going to come back to parking at some point in a bigger context?
This was because it's such a change from what we have been doing. Last I remember us discussing it, we weren't going to discuss it past this because it is such a big change.
Okay.
We can discuss parking more if you all would like, but that's how I took that previous conversation. Since
That-
it was
you
going
could be
from
right.
the bedroom to the dwelling unit, and it's such a reduction of our required parking, we didn't want to go past what the state was going to require yet.
So the state sets a maximum
Yep.
that we can require, and you have set this at the maximum.
Yep.
Okay.
Because we are aware of some communities who have gone farther, right? Have reduced it even farther than what the state requires. Is that what you're getting at? Should we have a discussion about going
I would have to
farther than
look
that?
at other partially planning jurisdictions. There's additional requirements in RCW 3670A for the growth management that you can't require at all require parking for certain things. And so through that, other jurisdictions have changed their parking requirements for that. I mean, some jurisdictions are just kind of like, however much parking you want to give is how much parking you want to give. We're not going to regulate any of it because there's so many, if this, then no parking, but if they do this, then parking, but if then they do this thing, then no parking, that it's just easier for some jurisdictions to say, we're not going to have any required parking. But I can kind of look at other partially planning jurisdictions to see what they're doing.
Is that where you were
That is
going?
kind of what I was thinking is, yeah, to be honest, I guess I'm not fully prepared to have the full conversation about parking right now, and I don't know about the others, but I would like the opportunity to fully prepare for that conversation. I think the stuff that the state's doing is big changes, for sure, but I do have some additional thoughts, but I don't really have my ducks in a row on that with citations and such.
Yeah.
Yet.
Mr. Chair. I just also might point out, I know we have an audience member who's come here for a long time, rides his bike, rides it home. Just seems like we ought to have an opportunity for finally, where he gets to present to us or talk to us or gives us his ideas.
Yeah, once we get through peppering the staff here, we'll ask for comments from the audience. I'd have a question, as long as we have the parking use chart in front of us. On the regulations mention organic materials management facility. What is that?
So that could be a new landfill, a recycling center, if we started doing industrial composting, biochar, it's kind of any kind of organic material waste facilities. And the RCW for it is pretty vague, because it just says that the city will allow it where the county says. But then they talk about industrial zones, so that I just put it as permitted in our industrial zones. Because it didn't really give much direction on code.
Okay, it has to go in the WSU zone as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put that on.
Yeah, the university has a very substantial composting facility. Plus, I think they have their own recycling facilities as well. They do. They have their own recycling facilities.
Well, this doesn't pertain to WSU.
I understand that, but we do have the WSU zone in the city, and the university has wide discretion. But at any rate, there is a large a large composting facility on campus. All the waste from barns and the like goes to it. In fact, if you buy compost at SYG Nursery, that's WSU compost. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'll open it to the audience for comment. I'm not going to set a time limit, but be succinct.
Hi, my name is Timo Ronin. My current address is 1590 Northeast Cougar Way, and I'm the vice president of a student organization called Student Local Advocacy Pullman. You're probably not surprised to hear that I'm here to comment on the compliance with Senate Bill 5184. I encourage the commission to consider going further than the state law requires and to eliminate like all the parking minimums for all uses citywide. About 2 years ago, I sent the commission an email requesting that Pullman do this. I won't repeat the entire thing, but to recap, I argued that parking minimums hurt businesses, increase housing costs, make the city less attractive, and contribute to car dependency. The requirements are often set pseudo-scientifically, and developers and not cities know how much parking a particular project needs. I stand by what I said, and I'm going to add on to it. Car-dependent cities are inherently less sustainable than like walkable cities. Like, of course, there's the environmental sense with all the extra carbon emissions, extra land that gets paved over, but there's also the financial sense in that it results in a high like road to taxpayer ratio, making it difficult for the city to afford to maintain and patrol the roads. And you know, right now is a time when individuals, businesses, governments alike are all struggling financially, and it doesn't really make much sense to require the construction and maintenance of massive parking lots that are rarely more than half full. That pushes people further apart, and suddenly we need a lot more roads and cars to connect everyone. We all know that Pullman isn't in a very good financial situation at the moment. Maybe we could attract more development in the city by not requiring developers to spend unnecessarily large amounts of money on parking. Sure, it's hard to like stop being car dependent if that's how the city was built, but Pullman isn't doing too bad there. We're fairly compact, and we have a bus system that's quite robust for our size. Furthermore, the wind is already blowing in this direction, so to speak. More and more cities are recognizing that parking minimums are counterproductive. Within just the past year, Bothell, Bremerton, and Shoreline have all eliminated all of their parking minimums. And just a few weeks ago, Tacoma's Planning Commission voted to axe them too. There's also at least some support from Pullman City Council for doing so. Councilmember Fajarin has publicly expressed support for abolishing Pullman's parking minimums. To be clear, removing parking minimums doesn't mean that no more parking will be built. In cities that have implemented parking reform, plenty of parking continues to be built. After all, customers and tenants won't be happy if there isn't enough parking, but now developers and businesses can right-size their parking lots for their particular projects. And what has also been observed in these cities is an increase in housing affordability. Minneapolis, for instance, has seen a decrease in average rent after implementing a series of zoning reforms that included the removal of parking minimums. And a 2024 study from Colorado found that parking reform was the single most effective land use policy for increasing the number of homes built. If you decide not to completely remove parking mandates, I would request that you at least add bars and pubs to the list of uses that are exempt from parking, because by requiring bars to have a parking lot, you're sort of implicitly encouraging people to drive drunk. And this exemption was actually in the original version of the state bill, but it was removed in the House committee for who knows what reason. Also, if you're going to require car parking, why not require bike parking too? When I'm cycling off campus around Pullman, I almost never see a full parking lot, but I often have trouble finding a place to park my bike. Many businesses in town don't even have a good signpost to lock my bike to, let alone a bike rack. If we want to encourage more people to bike in Pullman, which I think we should, then maybe we should consider bicycle parking minimums. Compared to traditional parking minimums, putting in a couple of bike racks is much cheaper and less environmentally damaging than building a parking lot. And yeah, thank you for considering, and that's all I have to say for now, unless there are any questions.
Mr. Chair. So this is a fascinating topic, and you and I share that commitment to ride our bikes all over the place. I, much like you, end up trying to find a space to put my bike when I see a lot of empty cars, parking spots. So, but I don't want to limit it to bikes, right? I have been a huge advocate of alternative methods of transportation. I think we are so car first in our society. Everything revolves around cars, and it's an opportunity for Pullman to be progressive, right? To not just follow maybe what the state is mandating, but an opportunity to get out in front of it and say, there are a few communities like Pullman where we have such a huge student population, and often their first year, parents don't allow them to bring a car, can't afford a car. It's later maybe in their whole 4 years they don't get a car, but later they get a car. I just think it's an excellent opportunity for Pullman to take the lead on something and say, let's consider alternative forms of transportation. But in doing that, you advocated for letting the developer determine what's needed in the business or the housing. Would we want to do that with alternative forms of transportation also? Would we really want to mandate to them what they need to do for any kind of parking? Would we turn it over to the developer and say they probably know best? And what are your thoughts?
I feel like a lot of developers and businesses don't even think about bike parking at all. So maybe by just requiring just like a very basic amount would have them think about it more and think about the needs of their customers and their tenants. Yeah, I mean, I sort of, I mean, I didn't want to seem like hypocritical by saying we should remove parking minimums but then add bike parking minimums, but they're sort of not really the same thing, in terms of the impacts of them. Yeah, I haven't thought too much about what specifically that would look like in terms of adding bike parking minimums, or if we should have bike parking minimums. If we were to get rid of regular parking minimums.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just curious, brainstorming with you. I also go back or waffle on it a little bit. I often think that sometimes you have to encourage the change a bit, because if you don't encourage it, then it doesn't happen. Yeah. All right, just curious.
I think it's worth pointing out with regard to requirements that the city requires, and I think it's a state requirement, electric vehicle charging in parking lots for apartments. Is that a state requirement?
It is, it's in the building code.
Okay, so we do have requirements for preparing for automobiles at any rate. I think the real issue with bicycle parking, in apartments especially, the real issue is covered parking. And I know there's a student living facility owned by LCSC in Lewiston, and they do have a large room where there's just lots of bicycles. I couldn't believe how many bicycles I saw in that room. And what the students, of course, their weather is a lot nicer. What the students do is carry their bicycles up the hill, right around, the facility's right on Main. They carry their bicycles up the hill, ride around campus and so forth, then ride back down the hill to home. So this is an example of really first-rate bicycle facilities that people are using. I think we ought to be prepared for the future, a future that we want to see. But I'm not sure that requiring covered bicycle parking ought to be something we should do here.
I will point out that I have looked at some jurisdictions that do have bicycle parking minimums, and a lot of them require specifically covered parking for residential buildings. Usually they will require certain amount of just any type of bike parking, and then also a certain amount of specifically covered bike parking.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm inclined to think that we need to deal with the issue before us based on state code and changes in state code. But I'm also inclined to think that we need to talk about parking in a broader, more general way. I'm not sure that I'm really prepared to sit here today and vote to eliminate all the parking requirements in Pullman. But on the other hand, going carefully through and making sure that we have enough spaces in mining and rock quarries, for example. This gets really particular. I think that we ought to be prepared to consider some of the cities that you mentioned that have eliminated parking and see what their code looks like and go from there. Anyway, does anybody else have any questions for Timo? Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience want to talk to us about changes in city code?
Hello, my name is Allison Montrotolo. I live at 635 Northeast Illinois, which is on College Hill. Parking has been a concern on College Hill for as long as I've been there, which is, I think, 35 years now, so 30 at least. I did not get a chance to dive in and read all the words specifically, but on the I didn't study all the issues. This is not going to be very organized. I actually love the very last part about exempting infill development in existing buildings, the fact that it is in existing buildings. To me, that incentivizes the preservation of our built environment. It gives you extra incentives to reuse buildings, which is a good thing. I didn't understand the density bonus. If it means what I think it means, it would be an incentive to take like a big house and divide it into maybe 4 different units and get that kind of a bonus. That can be sad to see. However, it does preserve at least a building that is there. So, a mix of good and bad, I think, but the parking, as I've tried to express this to Ariel and others over the years, what you see on College Hill is just a very chaotic and disorganized parking pattern in general. There's parking all over the streets that's, sometimes blocking intersections. On the way here, there were several times when we had to pull over, like, here comes a truck with a beer dye table straddling the bed of the truck, and so it's extra wide, and you've got to, people are pulling over, and that's just on a very calm night. On a game day weekend, there are streets you literally cannot drive through. So it's extremely congested almost all the time, except for vacations. Then there's the yards, and then there's just a slow degradation of that space, which in an environment that doesn't have parks, look at a map. This is a neighborhood that doesn't have parks because the way the city has done parks historically is they're only donated land. And so where the land was most needed or most valuable for development, you didn't get the donated parklands. So the neighborhood doesn't have parklands. So the yards and the planting strips become very essential green space in a dense environment where people need that green space. And when they're in housing units that a lot of times don't have windows, they have the bare minimum window, which is one window per bedroom. So a 4-unit dwelling is going to have 4 windows, maybe a kitchen window too. But so yards actually are tremendously important. Ariel has pointed out, we do have the 50% rule. We're not, thank goodness we have that. But it's really, in my opinion, it's really hard for staff to monitor that. You might have a yard that never went through a site plan review process, or when it didn't have that really defined perimeter for the parking area. So I know we do have a comprehensive plan goal that talks about that being one of our policies, is that parking areas will have a defined perimeter. And I really want to emphasize that. And one thing in the back of my head, I don't know how to cope with this planning for the future that we want, but in the back of my head, I'm thinking site plan review might be the one time when, even though you can't impose a minimum, what you can say is preservation of green space or preservation of open space, and ensure that if something is used as parking, that there is a perimeter there of some kind that will preserve still some remaining open area, especially in the front of a house. I think that is, I guess I would just want to figure out if there is a way that we could troubleshoot that, because we have lots of places where we have lost the yards and the yards are creeping away, and I think it would be too labor intensive for staff to try and sort that out. But what we could ensure is that as this infill development in existing building goes on, that might be a time to clean up some of these situations.
Sure. Hi, I have a question, maybe more than one. I haven't lived on College Hill since I was a student in apartment land, and so I've never lived in a house or had to deal with some of those things you're describing. My understanding is, and I guess I'm a little embarrassed I don't know this already, there is like a permit parking situation in College Hill, right? I see the signs when I try to find somewhere to park on a game day. Have to park in the church parking lot after all, which is fine. But so is that's something that College Hill Association has done above and beyond the city, is that correct?
Well, the residential parking permit program is a city program.
Okay.
That was initially advocated for by a group of Howard Street residents who were the group that eventually became the College Hill Association in 1992. So yes, it did come out of College Hill before College Hill Association. And there are 4 or 5 different residential permit areas on College Hill, and they all actually have different rules. But yeah, it's a program that must cost the city money, as far as I can tell, because I come down each year and I purchase the 2 permits, and it's $15 a year, and I'm handed these laminated things, and, there's envelopes and staff time and all of this kind of thing. It's very cheap, but it does, the way it's set up, it works really well because you have to show that you live there to get the permit.
I wonder if there's an avenue to, if hypothetically we did away with parking minimums, like in some of these areas where it is so problematic in these older neighborhoods, I wonder if it's like, okay.
Well, that would be, my recommendation is to use this to have the bigger conversation, maybe not right here tonight, but what's been in these planning documents since 2009 and has been discussed even before then, is to have mandatory parking program everywhere on College Hill. And maybe the city honestly will need to start looking at it in the older parts of Pioneer Hill and Military Hill and some of those places that have also densified over time. But yeah, there's areas that are extremely chaotic already. C Street is an example. There's a really new, large apartment building. It's called C Street Suites. It won several awards, like LEED certification awards. It's 4 or 5 stories. It has parking on the lower level. It met the requirements when it was built. They knew that parking minimums were going to be taken away eventually. They knew that time was coming. They overbuilt it specifically so that they can add 2 floors when the time is right. It's over-engineered and designed. They were just waiting until parking minimums went away. So they're fully prepared to do this. Now, economically, it wouldn't make any sense to do this right at this moment because there's not sufficient demand for housing, but there will be eventually. And I think a lot of the smarter people have just been waiting for this to happen. Well, in the meantime, here you have C Street. There's not continuous sidewalks. Look at the police logs. There's parking complaints every day on C Street. There's actual civil disputes going on between residents on C Street. So it is a problem. Like, we have to get in front of this. It's going to get worse.
Okay, thank you. Those are comments well taken. I have another question about your comments about the green space and the front yards and things like that. I mean, I guess I don't know. That's an interesting topic to me. Obviously, as a homeowner, I enjoy my lawn and having space to do those things. It is sort of, not necessarily jives well with affordable housing. If you want to have truly affordable housing, it's like you need to have less lawns and more dwelling units, but nobody wants that, of course. So it's an interesting, I hadn't thought about it until you brought it up. We need to maintain that, have the front yards and the 50% green space, and those things are important, but it is sort of like to what end, at what cost? Could put more dwelling units there if we had smaller, we went below that 50% green space thing. So anyway, I don't have anything to say about that except for I appreciate you bringing that up. That's an interesting, I think it was an important thing to say.
And I think historically, there's been a lot of injustice. In the name of affordable housing, you can look in urban areas where they didn't get trees, and we see that all over, and there are people trying to reverse that pattern with the thought that all people deserve access to trees and green space.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Allison, can I just ask you a question? So with all of the issues you've seen on College Hill revolving around parking, so parking in particular, right, with, like you said, you had issues with coming down a street, somebody's coming, you got to find a place to, like, a driveway to pull in so they can get by, and then maybe they pull in, so it's this back and forth thing. Does any of that encourage you to explore alternative forms of transportation so it's not a problem that you're like, wow, I don't have to deal with that because I have an alternative form.
Well, I live there because, I mean, we enjoy walking to campus. I mean, it is easier to get around on foot, for sure. And eventually we'll get e-bikes and that will make it easier to go farther. But in my view, every place in Pullman is walkable. So I don't need encouragement to explore alternative, but to come over here, now if City Hall had stayed in downtown, I would have walked to the meeting, you know, but this is quite a hike. But in the daytime, you know, I do think it does reach a point where it is so chaotic to go
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Sounds like you already utilize quite a few forms during the day when it's convenient or
I can
reachable.
share anecdotally, I've seen a couple real estate deals fall through on College Hill supposedly because the people said they were too scared to drive there. It was too congested. I don't feel that same sense of alarm. I enjoy the challenge. Like, it's fun to me. And it does keep the speeds real slow. Like, it's 10 miles an hour in most places. I think that's great. But I have heard that anecdotally, like people are just freaked out in that driving environment. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I want to ask the staff, with regard to College Hill specifically, there is nothing in this regulation in state law that would preclude a parking program, is that, such as what we have on College Hill, is that right?
So the parking program is just a parking pass to park on
Right.
street.
Yes.
But no, so this is all the required off-street parking
Yeah.
is what's being changed.
So if we extended this, I presume it doesn't cover C Street, is that right?
No, it's off-street parking only.
Right, but you have to have a permit to park on certain streets in Pullman.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question then.
Oh, yes.
So C Street is not part of a permit-only program?
I don't believe so, no.
I beg your pardon?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so, but we could change, the city could change that, so that this apartment building that's being built, that could be built, residents would have to find a space with a permit.
If C
If-
Street was added as a permit parking street,
Yeah.
they would then be required to have a permit to park on the street, yes.
Okay.
May I speak again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Topic.
Yeah,
So the issue with the current process, which has worked okay for when it was started in kind of heavily owner-occupied areas, it works okay. It's a petition process. So it requires the residents themselves to initiate a petition process. It's not under zoning, it's under streets or something like that. It goes through the police department. Because of my involvement in College Hill Association, I often receive communications and queries from people about, well, how could we get this? And a lot of times what I encounter is people saying, well, I live on Lake Street, it's impossible here, we can't ever park on our own block, like how can we get a petition going? And I can show them and I can, try and hold their hand, I can offer to support, but what it comes down to is if you're an undergraduate or a graduate student, by the time you go through this process, which takes about 1.5 to 2 years, it's senseless because you can initiate the thing, you can go through all this effort, you can get the signatures, then there's an engineering study, there's all this behind the scenes. It really doesn't work. And so now the areas that are left that are most critically affected, Lake Street, C Street, some of these places, they don't have owner occupants and they'll never be able to initiate this program. That's why I'm saying it would need to start all over with the city simply sorting it out somehow. Here are all the addresses that were built before we had parking requirements, because the fact is everything that's built right now meets everything that was built under these one-bedroom rules and all that, like they have enough parking for themselves. The problem is the places that don't. And so it's going to have to come down to like each dwelling unit might have a chance, lottery-driven or something, to get a parking space on the street. I don't know how it would work, but it's not through zoning. So this would require some sort of legislative city council thing that you guys could recommend, maybe.
So that's where I struggle with a lot of things, but especially with parking, because separating out what zoning can solve and what it can't because it's behavior driven, right? People who can't seem to park their car correctly are not going to suddenly learn how to parallel park correctly because of a change in zoning code, right? So eliminating off-street parking requirements or changing off-street parking requirements, how does that directly impact on-street parking problems? People blocking intersections, everything else. I think something just clicked when Allison was talking about the places that don't have continuous sidewalks and stuff. I think, I will opine, I think when the city moved to doing the rolling curb thing instead of the square curbs, I think that was detrimental to people being able to park correctly on the side of a street, right? It just lends itself to people parking half on the parking strip and stuff. If there's a big old square curb that's gonna destroy your tire if you can't park, it actually helps people park. So I'm not a real big fan of these rolling curbs because I think it is somewhat detrimental. And so I think that's part of what happens on College Hill is where you, and other parts of Pullman, Pioneer Hill, where you don't have really good gutter, curb, parking, planting strips, sidewalk, where that first 15 feet of the edge of the roadway, where that's not well done, that's where you get a lot of parking problems. And that's hard to fix after it's already built. But then how does that tie back into off-street parking number of spaces required? So if we did change, or if we eliminated, that's the bottom line question. If we eliminated off-street parking requirements, how would that impact, for either better or worse, the on-street parking problem behaviors we see today? Would it make it worse? Would it have no change at all? Are they completely separate issues? That's what I can't get my head around. I tend to think they're separate issues. I tend to think that off-street parking, number of spots per bedroom type thing really doesn't have any direct impact on how people park their parking behaviors on the street. And I think it's kind of like my garage and my storage unit. It doesn't matter how much off-street parking you have, you fill it up and then you still spill over into the street. So just if we required 4 off-street parking spots for every bedroom on College Hill, I still think we'd have parking issues on College Hill. So I kind of think they're separate.
I want to point out that the issue before us tonight is changing city code to match state code. As of today, indeed, if somebody came to the city with a proposal for an apartment complex, the city would have to apply the state code. Is that correct?
So the parking doesn't supersede our parking until July something of 2028 is when
Okay.
we have to update our code. But since we already had other state laws that we have to get adopted this year, we knew it was coming, just throw it in now.
Okay, so we could make this chapter on parking, on off-street parking. Wait a minute. The use chart, chapter 17.70, we can make the use chart effective whenever the state law changes. Is that right? And in the meantime, we could consider the whole issue from a broader perspective.
We wouldn't adopt it now. We would take that part out of what would go to city council, and then we would have to then come
Okay.
back, re-amend for the parking at that date.
Yeah, okay.
But we know it's coming, so it was just, we have other changes for state law. We'll just do all of the state law changes we know of at this time.
Okay, okay. Rolled curbs. I was on a committee to consider rolled curbs and vertical face curbs some time ago. I'd have to look it up in my resume. We talked about concrete every Monday evening in City Hall for several weeks and came up with the current code, which
Okay.
will allow for rolled curbs. There was a time when rolled curbs were just plain allowed. That didn't last very long. And we got complaints from a lot of people who said they really hated rolled curbs because, as you said, you can readily drive up over a rolled curb and park on the sidewalk, and people do it. On the other hand, you can readily, with, say, a 3/4 ton pickup, you can readily drive up onto a vertical face curb and park across the sidewalk. And even if you have a smart car, you can drive where the driveway comes down across the sidewalk, you can drive laterally onto the driveway up onto the sidewalk. But basically, people said they hated rolled curbs, so the city now will allow them only when there's a 3-foot planter strip.
Oh, okay.
So if you see a car parked on that 3-foot planter strip, that's because the rolled curb is allowed on account of the planter strip. And as for bad behavior and parking, I don't know what to say. In the midst of this committee meeting and people complaining to us about people parked on the sidewalk, there was in my neighborhood a boat parked on the sidewalk for months and months. So there's no accounting for people behaving badly. I do think we ought to just, since we have time, just take 17.70 out of the current consideration and bring everything else up to date and really hit it hard very soon with regard to parking.
Could I ask, what's staff's opinion about going beyond what the state has done, like what Timo's recommending? Like if we just eliminated required parking? What's your, from the research and the discussions you've had, where does staff fall on that?
Haven't done any research outside of the state. Makes review easier, because then we don't have to do that math and review it. I mean, what the state has done makes the math so much more simple. You know, when it's like you get your 200-unit apartment building, now you're counting all the bedrooms, and now you have to count all the parking spots, and does the math work? It's
Right.
saying have fun on your parking makes our life a lot easier.
I don't like it when the state tells us what to do.
What's that? You know, I mean, I'm not opposed to having a discussion about what some of the other communities have done and eliminating parking requirements completely. I think that's a valid discussion. I think there are other parking issues that really should be addressed in Pullman. I'm not sure they're under the purview of the Planning Commission, but working on some of these other parking permit issues, parking behaviors, those types of things. I agree with what Allison's saying, but I also kind of agree that we could maybe go farther if we wanted to.
Mr. Chair. So maybe a counter proposal, John, just something to think about. And let me just throw this out there and then I'll explain it. One alternative path is to leave in the work that Ariel's done and then come back and revisit this, right? So we update progressively ahead of when the state requires us to update. And the two speakers we had tonight, I think, would support that. Yeah. But then we come back and relook at this, right? With the idea that this is just bringing us to a state minimum. This is a code update to get us to state minimum, obviously for parking considerably ahead of when we're required to do it. But then it'd be holding to us not to let it die, because I see this gives us some momentum, some reason to do it. But if we don't let it die, we come back and really revisit this. I feel like, Joe, I want a bigger discussion on this. The presentations tonight were fabulous, but they're all brand new, right? So to react to them tonight and say I could get them into the code, I just think is a little bit premature. Timo, I love the fact that you have some research from other communities that have done what appears to be quite progressive, just eliminating it. And then they looked at, not only did they do it, but they looked back and said, I wonder what will happen. And now let's look at what did happen. And they observed some things. And so, gosh, we also have some test cases to look at that actually show us what may happen in Pullman, or we'd have to decide whether the community is similar. But anyway, that alternative path, John, would be to pass what we have tonight, but to the best of our ability, not let this die, and to take it up soon and to have a bigger conversation about perhaps going beyond or even eliminating parking requirements. I just feel like that maybe, two people came here tonight to talk to us about parking. I just wonder, no developer is here. It's interesting, right, that we're having this discussion, we're going to pass this. Maybe they just thought, hey, it's state law, what would we come and talk to you about? We can't do anything. But if they knew we were considering eliminating or could consider eliminating parking requirements altogether, I can't imagine a developer wouldn't be here saying, well, you guys want one big step for affordable housing, it would be to ease how much of my precious real estate I need to dedicate to putting a cage on, a four-wheeled cage. That would really help in affordable housing. But I didn't hear that here tonight, right? Because we don't have a developer. I don't know why we don't, but we don't have them here tonight. So I'd love to hear that if it's true. I don't know that it's true because I'm not a developer, but anyway, it's an alternative proposal that we moved forward and then not let it die, come back to it. It's a resolution, New Year's resolution.
I think if we do that, I think we need to make it really clear to city council and the mayor that that's our intention. Because sometimes there's been a pushback, well, no, you guys already looked at parking. You're done, right? You can't touch this again for another 4 years. So I think if we do move this forward as is, then I would, and we're all in agreement that we want to look at it further, then I would ask that when staff presents this to city council, that they make that very clear to the mayor and city council that this is an interim step, and staff and the planning commission is going to be looking at parking again very soon, and there might be more parking coming back to city council within months, and that's okay. That'd be my only ask, that we communicate that clearly to the mayor and city council.
Clarification, just that we will be looking at possible more amendments to parking, or do we want to get the feelers out on elimination of parking?
I will say, first of all, I think College Hill is a special circumstance. The reason is that there are already people living there in places that were not designed for, that are just woefully under-designed for automobiles. And at the same time, other people are building increased density with more and more automobiles. I mean, it's one thing to talk about the neighborhood where I live, where I can look up and down the street and there are like 4 cars parked on the sidewalk. That's no exaggeration. I can look up and down the street and there might be 4 cars parked on the sidewalk. But in College Hill, they're parked every place on the sidewalk. I think that neighborhood has some special difficulties that might preclude, as I said, I think we ought to talk about this some other time, but College Hill has some special difficulties that might mean different requirements for parking. I will add, by the way, we are just shortly after Persian New Year, so we can have Year's resolution based on the Persian New Year. It's true.
Thanks, John.
We had students from Iran in the department where I worked, yes.
Mr. Chair,
I'm never going to play Trivial Pursuit with this guy, no.
it's not just College Hill. I mean, even in my neighborhood in Military Hill, ironically, when I came home after our last planning commission meeting and went down Fisk, it is car to car to car on the roads. You know, at 10 o'clock, there was no way I could have squeezed my car in. Luckily, we live on the end cap. But, you know, it's an issue in other parts of the city as well.
So Ariel, I think my ask, and if the rest of the commission agrees, but my ask would be the way to communicate it to city council is a little more broad or a little more vague, that this was a state minimum, we wanted to get this done, we consider this almost more of an administrative exercise. We want to have a larger discussion around parking, looking at things that could include eliminating, but we want to engage developers, College Hill Association, other entities in a larger parking discussion, and we would very likely come back with changes.
Sounds
But not necessarily telegraph what we're going to do.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, I also agree with Scott's proposal. I think it gives the city time to assess how it, yeah. I think it gives the city time to assess where they're at, as developers come in and see if it's working. I mean, it is a reduction for most uses. There's a few that might be an increase though, like emergency shelter, 1 per 3 beds and 1 per sleeping unit. That seems excessive. So I can't imagine a shelter wanting 1 parking stall per bed. That would X the development.
Mr. Chair, I suspect that when we do bring it back up, that we're going to have very popular meetings for a while, because I think a lot of people are interested in parking, not just developers. It's going to be very interesting.
We've also discussed the possibility of joint council planning commission workshops, and this might be a topic where that makes sense, because some of the things like parking permit systems and things like that are probably not under our purview. They're probably under the city council. So to Allison's point, a true parking solution is going to take multiple aspects, some of which we might be able to do, but some that city council is going to have to do. So parking might be a good joint workshop, just a thought.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. The part that most excites me about this is the opportunity to have a discussion about not significant car forward, right? It's a big piece of why I'm actually wanted to be on the planning commission, right? To just get it. Now, I have a 91-year-old father who wrecked riding his bicycle and can't ride anymore. So not everybody can use these alternative forms of transportation. But he's not trying to park a car, right? He has to be driven everywhere now. So I just would love to have this opportunity in this bigger discussion about parking for Pullman to look at this, because we're really unique with a university in the town to look at as something that's not so car forward, right? Everything's about where to park this four-wheeled cage, and maybe we can look at it a little bit differently that would incentivize people to get out of that cage.
I just want to, for the record, I am in favor of what we're talking about here, moving it forward, but coming back into it. And it might be up to us to make sure that happens in a timely manner. I look forward to the conversation. I'm actually, and I haven't really heard anybody talk about it yet, I am mostly concerned about and interested in talking about commercial parking. I, not to be dramatic, get a little bit sick to my stomach when I have to go in the Walmart parking lot. And it is packed at Walmart, and that parking lot is 60% full. It's like, who thought we needed this many Anyway, I'm not going to go off on that. But also, a couple years ago, RJ recommended to me the book Paved Paradise, which if you haven't read it, I recommend going into this conversation. It's fascinating. It talks mostly about big cities. There's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't really pertain to us, but there are some really good takeaways from Paved Paradise. My favorite line in the whole book is, anybody who says the journey is more important than the destination hasn't spent 20 minutes trying to park when they get there.
Mr.
It's a great
Chair,
book.
just kind of related to that, if you ever want to have trauma bonding with someone from Pullman, you talk about the Rose Hours parking lot.
Yes.
Trauma bonding.
They had the opportunity to fix it too.
They made it worse.
So is there general agreement we want to move this forward as drafted by staff with maybe the tweaking the definitions?
So kind of on that, I added to retirement home, retirement or senior.
Okay.
So we have that, and then, oh my God, the Word document doesn't want to, there we go. And then for affordable housing, as defined by RCW 3670A030 as now existing or amended, our typical times. And then I just copied straight from the RCW and put it in the definitions.
Okay.
Ariel, just a small thing. On page 46, there's a reference to a footnote that no longer exists, so that might need to be redone.
46.
It's, if you look at the side picture, page numbers, it's page 46. If you look at the other ones, it's 35 of 54. There's two sets of numbers, which is very confusing for me. I'll show you afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, so those two definitions, the one misplaced footnote, anybody else have any comments aside from parking?
And then Ario, just the little comment on spaces, right? Adding spaces and
Yep.
dwelling unit, okay.
Oh, and
Right.
there was,
Page 38.
Yep, it says 0.5 spaces per dwelling unit.
yeah,
And
okay.
then I added dwelling to the one right below that as well? Is that
Yep,
where it was?
yep, okay.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm detecting consensus that we're ready to send this to the city council with a recommendation to accept the changes, and that we are intent on moving forward with further, much deeper discussion on parking.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So I make a motion to send it to city council with a recommendation.
Second.
Okay,
With a footnote.
So it's resolution number PC 2026-1.
Yes.
And there's, the staff has drafted the resolution.
okay,
There's a bunch of whereases.
oh, yes, the resolution is in our packet.
Yeah.
Where to go?
Page 180.
Okay, so with regard to resolution PC 26-1, we have a motion from Angela, a second from Lorena to, wait a minute, let me see this. To announce our decision that the proposed code changes enumerated in this resolution be forwarded to the Pullman City Council, the recommendation for approval. Also that the staff convey to the council our intention to consider parking more generally. Okay,
Can we have the peanut gallery quiet?
yeah, what's the deal here?
Someone knows
okay,
better.
All righty. Is there any further discussion? Does the sergeant at arms have any more comments? Any further? All right. Ready to, I'm going to do this from left to right with a roll call vote. So, Lorena,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
go ahead.
Aye.
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 All righty. So we have a unanimous vote. All righty. Thank you to those of you who spoke to us. Your comments were integral to what we did, and we appreciate it. Our next item of business, okay, so this concludes the legislative public hearing. Yes. Okay, our next item of business is to conduct a public meeting on Pullman City Code, Chapter 17.109, short-term rentals. This is not a legislative hearing. We will have to have a legislative hearing at another meeting. So we have one more meeting at least with regard to short-term rentals. Okay. We'll follow the same procedures, more or less. So we begin with the staff.
Yes, so the document before you is based off of the previous meeting and going based off of option A that was provided by Commissioner Hodge. We took it back, put it into the document to, look like the rest of the code, and then we met with other departments and staff to go through and see if they had any questions. So we compiled kind of all the questions, made it all the inserts and deletions to get it into the code formatting. And this is the document we have now. So I think kind of the main questions that staff had for the commission, as stated in your packet, is mainly around verification of some of the stuff that has been proposed. So I'm not sure if you would like to start with those questions, or if when you went through it, if there's any additional changes, or if we missed something. I think we got it all, but we are human, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Joe.
is this printout identical to what's on?
Yes, it's just the clean version.
Okay, it's the same, though. I don't have to look at both at the same time.
No, unless you want to see the actual changes
Okay,
from like what it previously was to what we're proposing.
got it.
It was just a clean version that's easier to read as requested by Commissioner Hodge.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get to your questions to us in just a moment.
Fantastic.
Does anybody on the commission have questions for the staff at this point?
No questions. I would just propose that we go down this top to bottom and we hit maybe some items as we go, and then when we get to Ariel's comments, we can address them as we get to them, but just kind of work top to bottom.
We're at a stage where, is anybody going to have any questions or comments along these lines?
Yes.
It's a fairly short chapter.
Minor, I think,
Okay.
but yes.
Okay. The staff has put questions to us. We ought to deal with that. And we have to listen to people in the audience as well. Okay, so the staff has put 2 questions to us about enforcement. Does anybody have any comments about that?
The staff has multiple comments in here. Ariel kind of summarized where, at a high level. I would just propose we talk about them when we get to them.
I'm going to open it up to the audience then at this point. Does anybody in the audience have anything to say to us? Again, we appreciate being succinct.
Good evening. I'm going to officially announce my retirement from public comment. Although I heard there's another meeting coming, so we'll see what happens. I'd heard some things today from the mayor and some other things that I just wanted to kind of zoom us back out, and here's the reason for that. There was a kind of a discussion that went on this morning on news radio just about the fact that numbers are down for Airbnbs. And I can confirm that numbers are actually down in terms of the people I've talked to, myself included, and like the amount of income has drastically been reduced. Some people have said 20%, some people have said 30%, mine's even greater than that. So I think when we come to something like that, the reaction to that in this conversation had been, hey, I think it's balancing out, so maybe we don't need more. Something like that. And I want to be really careful with comments like that. And the reason for that is I think what happens, one of the phrases, and I've been using different phrases I've been talking to you at different times, like hammer looking for a nail, tax on the responsible, things like that. But I think there's one real key phrase that I would like to present, and it says, an opinion in the presence of ignorance is taken as a truth. Right? If we isolate information at times, we can really limit the big picture. And we're getting close to landing the plane here. I may differ on you guys on different things and what we should do, so we're kind of getting close to landing the plane. But I want to remind us why we're here. And I think one of the big ticket items is to look at, okay, the overall picture of the ecosystem that I mentioned last time about Pullman and what it's going through. If you look at, I sat in this room with my 12-year-old son, and he actually talked to city council recently because he was concerned about the budget cuts affecting his swim team this summer, right? And so, yeah, that's my boy. So he was terrified and nervous, just like I was the first time that I stood up here. But he did a phenomenal job, and I applauded him because when he did that, he came with a solution. And he looked at the big picture, and he asked questions to everybody. And I want to remind us of the big picture that we're facing is that we're in a $3 million budget shortfall, and that we are in the process of letting people go who are temporary. We're on the verge of having to look at actually removing permanent staff and going through the process with unions and things like that. And in my mind, just so you know, I don't think short-term rentals fixes the issue. But I think it's a component of the issue. And so that's why I've missed dinners and sat back there for all this time, is because I believe that this is a piece of the puzzle to where if we want this thing to work, we need to make it cohesive as in a whole ecosystem. I think another component that's not really governed here, but is really the tourist thing. Pullman is a place where people come, they receive value, and they go away. That happens in short components where people come for football games, but it also comes for education. Pullman has always been a place where people come and they receive a benefit and they go away. And we receive the benefit of being able to influence them, provide arts and services to them, and Pullman has been better because of that. And so when we talk about the short-term rentals, when we talk about the big picture, I want to remind us that just because numbers are down does not mean that we get to go that it's balanced. We need to say, what is our goal with short-term rentals? Short-term rentals is a piece of the puzzle for Pullman right now in building it back to what it could be. And I think a lot of that is tourism, but as a short-term rental owner, I think you're going to see more people fall off for a little bit because you can't survive January through March right now if you are tight on a budget. I do think on the counter to that is sometimes that allows people that maybe couldn't afford a home normally if they're renting out a home, and I really appreciate some of the caveats in here of the exemptions of 2 bedrooms and things like that. That allows people in Pullman to actually have a home. And I think some of the clarity that's been provided has been really good. I said from the get-go, I've appreciated staff's effort on this because it's provided clarity when we didn't have it. We had gone through a long period where we had none of it. And the staff has never been here to sabotage this thing or to challenge this thing, but we need to remember, take a deep breath and look back at the big picture of what we're trying to accomplish. News that I just heard today is that Hilltop just sold. You guys know the Hilltop, and they're actually going to renovate half of that. In that process, there's going to be 50 hotel rooms that are not going to be available. Right? We are facing headwinds from the state. I agree with R.J. Lott in his comment that I don't like the state dictating what we do here at some level. We're facing headwinds from the state. We have people that are having a harder time running businesses. I'll tell you, because I'm an academic and I live in the recruitment world right now, just so everybody's aware of what's happening with enrollment at WSU, we're down 18-20% in the last 6 years, right? And so we've taken a huge decrease. I don't think that's going to stop. I mean, it's starting to bottom out. I think that's going to be challenged, and I'll tell you why. If you look at what's happened with UW and the legislative funding that they've had reduced legislative funding. They've had reduced visas that bring in students from international, right? And so international students, when they come in, they pay out-of-state tuition. That's their bread and butter, huge amount of volume there, right? And then you also have the reduced legislative tuition. So they're at a budget shortfall. What do? They let in more in-state tuition, in-state kids. What's that mean for WSU? A lot of people that were committed initially to WSU ended up going to UW. And they've seen class sizes grow over at UW while we're seeing decreased enrollment over here. Peak birth rate in Washington State, anybody know when that came in? That was 2008. Okay, that means 18 years later, that's right now. The number of students that we have that are being populated in Pullman, or in the state, like, as you look at, that's going to be a decreasing trend. So I appreciate what the mayor said, that we've actually been at parity because the local population is growing, even though the students are going down. I don't perceive that we're going to see some of that go away. I'm just saying that when you guys sit on the bench, I appreciate the effort and the time that's gone into this, because this is a challenging topic. All the hours and everything that's gone into this, staff, you guys, because this is a complicated problem, we don't solve this by just looking at one isolated thing about safety. We don't look at one isolated thing about, hey, numbers of Airbnbs are going down. It's a whole ecosystem, and to revisit the purpose of what we're here for. And I just appreciate your guys' effort in that process, but to remind us that it's a bigger picture issue that we get to be involved in, and we are a piece of that puzzle. I'll leave it there. Questions? Okay.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. Anybody have any comments, let's see, on the purpose? Anybody have any comments on definitions?
I have a tiny one on purpose on item number 5. There's a comma here that wasn't in Scott's. So it says benefit to Pullman businesses, comma.
Yeah.
I just don't know that there needs to be a comma there. That's just
No.
grammar stuff. But
Okay, definitions,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
I'm just wondering on one, and the order. Is it to support home ownership opportunities and provide additional lodging, or is it to provide additional lodging and support home ownership, which is kind of, perhaps the way we've been thinking about it?
Mr. Chair. So, Raina, I think that, I don't know that I would be opposed to switching it around. I think that for a long time, this commission has worked with affordable housing, right? It is, and affordable housing is a tough thing to define. It's tough to do in Pullman. It has a lot of aspects. Parking is a part of, as we heard tonight, affordable housing. I know that when the mayor ran, part of his platform was addressing affordable housing. It's one of his objectives, affordable. He's an affordable housing committee that's working on how do you make housing more affordable in Pullman. And so the reason it's first, when I just think it's just paramount in Pullman, right? If we have some method of making housing more affordable, and I think short-term rentals in Pullman do drive a home affordability, much unlike other communities. In some communities, and I visited those communities when traveling around in my van for 3.5 months, it has the opposite effect. It drives up the price of housing. That's not the case in Pullman. And that's why I wanted it to be first, to really highlight that, right? It is an opportunity for people to rent out a room or two in their house, 10 event weekends in Pullman, when the town does fill up, and maybe reduce, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on how much they charge and how nice their place is and how close it is to the venue. Makes their house $5,000 more a year affordable.
I could accept that.
Okay. Now anybody on definitions?
one minor one on definition number 2. Second sentence starts with a property owner. Scott's version had a landlord. So I just don't know if that was an intentional change to change landlord to property owner. I don't have an opinion. I think it works either way. I'm just curious if that was intentional or if Scott has any comment about that.
I think property owner is a little more definite in who we're talking about.
Yeah, I studied that one, Brent, and I was okay with changing it to property owner. I think it does seem a little bit more definite.
Yep, all right.
Okay, so the first question that arises from the staff is in the definitions. How does the staff verify living in a residence for at least 6 months out of the year?
I think that's kind of an honor system, and if they pay taxes if that's where they're living.
I would agree. You guys have all heard me say this, right? We don't have a problem. We are devising a solution for a non-problem. We just don't have a problem. So how do we go out and investigate whether the person actually resides at the property for 6 months? The second we have a problem, the neighbor calls, right? And I've often thought, what if I get the STR from hell living right next to me? I want to make sure that we have code that turns that STR into something that's manageable, that lives right next to me. So I'm not oblivious to the fact that we have to have a little bit of meat in here, right? So if I'm the neighbor that's upset because this STR is out of control, you bet I'm going to complain. And then how is it that we verify that the person lives there 6 months? Well, somewhere on their taxes, they claim it as a primary residence, or somebody lives there. There are methods to investigate whether they're falsifying this occurring. But let's say it happens that they are falsifying it, but not a single thing goes wrong, right? They don't live there 6 months, but we never hear about it. Well, it's kind of like it is right now, or has been for over a decade, right? And we just haven't had a complaint. It is a bit of an honor system, but it's an honor system in a system that has no problems.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair.
I'm inclined, I agree with you. Any comments?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a real danger in having code that can't be enforced. Just because it's not been an issue doesn't mean that it won't be. We have a lot of code that exists that have never been an issue, but we have the code. So when we do get it, if or when we do get a complaint, staff gets a complaint, hey, this neighbor is never here, how do we verify that? More than just that their name is on the tax roll with the assessor. What's the next step? How do we verify? The honor system, as great as that sounds, doesn't always work. So, not that I'm necessarily opposed to this, it's just something that needs to be understood, is that how can staff verify this code section once it becomes a complaint? If we're going to just go by what the assessor has on record, then let's put that in the definition. After that, I don't know how to verify who lives where for how much time. I don't know if they have a second house in Palm Springs and live there 7 months out of the year.
This is something that's been dealt with quite a bit, because in Montana, if you have 2 homes, you have to pay more property tax on the one that you're not in for 6 months a year. But one of the easy ways to do it is just to ask the person for their driver's license. It has your permanent residence on it.
I don't think that would be sufficient to prove that they live there 6 months out of the year.
I think also to state the case as a real horror, imagine somebody lives in the property for 8 months of the year, but the months the person is gone are August, September, October, November, December. That's 5 months. That means that person is gone the entire football season, plus students coming back and fall commencement.
Well, that brings up the second point that staff
Yeah.
put together, and I think that comes a little bit later. But just the definition part, it's a real danger to have code section that staff can't enforce or can't verify.
It's difficult because some of the things that you might use aren't really applicable because of the short-term rental situation. I mean, you can't say they're not getting trash because they're always going to have trash because they have people living there. You can't say, mail isn't being delivered. Well, I guess that'll always be delivered. But yeah, it's just, it's limiting. It's a quandary.
I just kind of go back to what others have said, though. The whole idea of primary residence versus secondary homes, it's a long-standing tax thing. It's in every state. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't take some legwork, but I just feel there's mechanisms that if and when there was an issue and the city really had to go toe-to-toe with a property owner over problems with a short-term rental, if that really happened, I just think there would be mechanisms. I don't know that we have to codify them into this with exactly how that would work.
I would agree, RJ. I think a lot of, government rights laws, there's a big piece of an honor system, right? You get to exclude the capital gains on your primary residence if you lived in it 2 out of the last 5 years. Prove it. Did you live in it 2 out of the last 5? Really hard to prove. Really hard for the government to say you didn't or did. You can travel around in your van for the entire year. You visited 1 day in each of the last 2 years. You're still going to exclude it. It's your primary residence. So, if we get to the point in this code where somebody is, if the biggest issue is that they're claiming that this is their primary residence and that they live on property 6 months out of the year, and we think they're lying, we must have gotten there in another method, right? Like they were really noisy, or there's noise complaints, garbage complaint, parking complaints, all things that we could have fixed in a different way, right? Like this is a minimal part of the code. I really don't think this is ever going to come up, but something got us to this point, right? Some other kind of complaint got us here. And every one of those other complaints has a resolution that is much easier than probably proving that the person lives there for 6 months. But even if we got there somehow, some other complaint wasn't rectified, and now we're focusing on this 6-month thing, I think there are methods, like Brent said, that allow you to get it, whether that person is just flat out lying. And part of it is that when the complaints occur and the police show up and they say, we've had 3 noise complaints at this residence, and in all 3 occasions, the guy who says it's his primary residence, he's nowhere to be found. We're starting to question whether it's his primary residence, because the intent of this clause is that by having somebody on site, it alleviates some of the problems. And that guy's never there, as evidenced by the 3, whatever the complaints were. But we've gotten to this point because something else has happened, and those other things, I think, can get resolved. If it's a noise complaint, we have a noise resolution. If it's a garbage complaint, we have a garbage resolution. If it's parking, we have parking. All of the things that would get us here, we've failed at those, and now we're at this point where we're somehow trying to prove the guy doesn't live there for 6 months and that's going to fix the problem. We're just so deep in a hole, I just don't think we're ever going to get there.
If we're going to verify primary residence by assessor records and driver's license, let's put that in the definition. What's the harm in that?
So your suggestion would be that if it's your primary residence, state law says that should be on your driver's license, right? So at least the guy had to go through changing his driver's license, which would be a cumbersome thing to do if he was just trying to fake it. That seems legit.
What I'm saying is if somebody comes to me and says, hey, RJ, my neighbor, I haven't seen him here for 18 months.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like, I don't know if that's true or not. How can I verify?
Sure.
So at least there's something in the code to verify rather than just hearsay or I was gone or my kid had a soccer tournament in Tacoma, right? Some other story. The problem is that we're going to get a complaint. We already had a complaint, which is why we're here again, in part. Someone's going to complain, inevitably. So how do we verify it? If the planning commission is certain that it's via assessor records and driver's license, then let's put that in the definition. What's the downside?
The downside is it limits you to only using those mechanisms.
Okay, put those two and others.
And the language we have right now is a direct quote from the state RCW. We wanted to try to remain as completely consistent with the state, and the state didn't feel a need to go into a lot of detail on how they would verify occupying the dwelling as their primary residence for at least 6 months during the calendar year. That we just borrowed those words, and so I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I don't feel like I really want to add words.
The state also doesn't get phone calls from neighbors.
Say that again, the state does what?
The state doesn't get a phone call from a neighbor.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
The state gets a lot of phone calls. I mean, they get state legislators and everything. They get a lot of, they get lobbyists and everything else too. So they do get. Yeah, I'm not sure.
First of all, I'm very sensitive to the notion of ordinances that aren't enforced. All you have to do is wait for a really hard winter, and you see every fifth house doesn't have any snow cleared. City ordinance says you have to clear the snow, and it just irritates people no end when they see snow not cleared on sidewalks. It really irritates people. So I'm sensitive, and there are other. And it's worth pointing out, I read in the newspaper just recently, the city has brought an enforcement action against Higginson Home Furnishings based on 2 years of complaints and lack of conformity to the fire codes. I mean, this is serious. The city claims that there is a possibility a fire could start in that building and people inside not be able to escape. And it's taken 2 years to get to the point of the city finally taking enforcement action. In this particular case, however, I'm wondering if we need to ask the assistance of the city attorney. Is there a way that people typically use to prove legal residence?
Well, you do need to get liability insurance, and don't you have to prove that you own the property and that you live there to get the insurance?
I don't know the answer to that.
So if you list on Airbnb or VRBO, they provide that insurance for people?
So,
There
yeah,
are some people who have submitted their own personal liability insurance from whoever their insurance company is, but most of them just put the screenshot from Airbnb or VRBO that they provide that liability coverage.
We're discussing hypotheticals, and I understand that's what we do, right? But could we just let this go as is, with the wording as is, the wording by the state? If or when in the next 5 years we end up within one of these Higginson's things where it's a big deal and the city ends up unfortunately spending time and effort trying to prove whether somebody resides at their address or is lying, and we have at least one experience with where we went through this and the city had to prove, or a person had to prove their residence, then we would have some data, we'd have an example, we'd know how to do it, and then we could revise 17109 to add that word. But right now, I don't know.
I
understand the
agree.
concern, but I don't really see the problem, and I'm challenged to try to figure out a solution.
We're far down a rabbit hole, right? I get the what if scenarios, but somehow we got here long after a lot of other things were exhausted. This wasn't your first stop, right? The guy didn't suddenly live next to a well-run short-term rental and suddenly say, everything's been going well, but I think I'll just submit a complaint to the city that I don't think he lives there 6 months out of the year. Because things are going well and I feel like doing it. Maybe. It just seems like such an anomaly that somebody would want to do that when the property next to them has no other complaint. Noise, parking, garbage, something going on that annoys them. So there's no annoyance. We're just back to this, I just don't think he lives there 6 months. I also don't think that when you get a complaint, you ask the person, we have a complaint that you don't appear to be on property or live at the residence. Can you provide evidence that that's not true? And the guy said, well, let me show you all the evidence. I got a driver's license. I get my power bill there. Whatever they bring to show you that I indeed do live there. Upon calling that person out, if they're legitimately the person who doesn't live here, they just fake it, I think he's going to say, uh-oh, gig's up. This doesn't work anymore. They caught me. We're so far down a rabbit hole. It's just, this isn't the thing that's going to come to you. It just isn't, right? In the 5 years of polling data, we haven't had a complaint on a short-term rental. Some guy not living in his house that's running a well-done STR just isn't going to be the complaint. And if it is, he still has to show you, based upon the complaint, what he's going to do to satisfy that indeed I do live there. I get that my neighbor doesn't think I do, but let me show you I do. Here's my evidence.
So during the application and annual permit, could you just require the assessor records during that process to verify? And that would subvert, you'd stay ahead of it if there's issues.
But they're exempt, so there wouldn't be a permit process.
That's true.
Would it be appropriate to say here, add on to this sentence, the individual must physically reside at the property and be able to prove it?
Yeah, be able to demonstrate,
Yeah. That's interesting, because if you look at all of the,
yeah.
when I do my taxes and you do a mileage write-off, oh my God, can you prove, right, that you drove these miles, and do you have written proof that you drove these miles, right? They have two questions on that Form C. I don't know. I don't know that I have a problem with putting in there that you must have proof and leaving proof alone, right? The government doesn't ask me. They say, do you have proof? Yes. Do you have written proof? Yes. And you move on. I never show it. I could be totally lying.
But we hear time and time again how vague city code is. That's very vague. So are we going to keep vague language? Are we going to get rid of vague language? So we keep flip-flopping on this. Are we being too lenient? Are we not being, are we not being lenient enough? Are we being vague? Are we not being vague enough? And so it's really hard for staff lately when it comes to code, because it's like, well, on this thing they wanted this, but this thing it's the complete opposite. So we need some consistency. Are we going to be vague in some things? Are we not going to be vague? We hear it time and time again. So if we just say provide proof, it's going to be a bunch of phone calls, a bunch of emails. Well, what is this proof? Is this good enough? Is that good enough? How about this? What about? And so if we just say, at least 6 months during the calendar year as provided by the Whitman County Assessor records, it says ownership right there on the side. It has property details on the left of here's the property you're looking at, ownership records on the right, where it has your name, the address that all your stuff gets sent to. And I don't work for the assessor, so I don't know if you can have 2 properties with your name listed on both.
Well, yeah, you could have 100 properties in Pullman with your name listed as the primary owner, so.
But the address part, under the ownership contact, it has last name, comma, first name, and then your mailing address.
But you can only have your driver's license associated with one of those addresses.
So we could easily just say.
Other ways, there's the way the state does this, they do like utility bills, bank statements, where your income tax returns actually go where your like W-2 forms are mailed to you. There's a whole series, a whole list of things. Do you want to put the whole list of things in here?
But that's what I'm saying.
It's
for
just
the
normal.
assessor's records, if it's just based off of your driver's license and that's your primary address, then why don't we just say based on the assessor's
That's the easiest thing to
records?
do.
But
is the driver's
I can
license.
verify that, I can look it up, I can call the assessor.
I'm with Scott. The language that's in here, I think, the language that's there right now today, I think works. I think it is clearly understood by 99.99% of the people who live in Pullman. And if we really do if the city staff finds themselves in the middle of a pissing match between two neighbors about whether somebody lives there 6 months a year or 5 months a year, I think we're just going to have to deal with that.
I thought that about the evacuation plan. Seeing evacuation plan, everyone knows what that is. Then all of a sudden it wasn't, well, what do you mean? What's good enough? What is that? And I'm just like, it's an evacuation plan. What do you mean?
Yeah, no, yeah.
So
I
it's going back
understand.
to, are we going with vague? Are we going to be as,
To me, this is not vague. This is very clear that it's your primary residence. You live there at least 6 months out of the calendar year. That's not vague to me. If we're debating how staff is going to verify this, the language is not vague. How staff is going to verify this may be a little bit vague, but that's a what if, and we deal with it when it happens.
we didn't get 3 months into this code before we had to relook at it based off of nothing to staff.
If we've got a chance to address it, let's just address it now. Why wait for something to happen?
And you're saying you already got a complaint?
We've had a complaint.
Yeah.
Not about residency.
No, because it wasn't in the code.
Right, yeah. We had one complaint for the entire city. It was a very, very different complaint.
I've used this analogy before. I've never been in a car accident, knock on wood, but I wear my seatbelt. I don't
So-
wait until after an accident to wear my seatbelt.
So
if we
what
have
is
a
the
chance to
specific wording?
clarify the code, let's do that now.
Okay, propose a specific wording. What
Driver's
exact
license,
words do you want in
assessor
there?
records, tax
I was like,
returns.
I just did.
Okay.
Based on Whitman County assessor records.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
I don't understand what the downside of that is.
No, that,
Do assessor records really tell you primary residence for 6 months out of the calendar year?
They show you primary residence.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where the property tax is sent.
Yeah, it says like, here's who owns it, and here's that person's address, and it may differ from the actual assessor
But-
property record.
Okay, if you're sure that works. I just thought couldn't I own 3 houses in Pullman? And I would look this,
Here's
if
how-
I owned 3 houses and you pulled the Whitman County assessor's records for those 3 houses, would you be able to tell which one of those was my primary residence, which ones were not?
Yeah,
You would?
It would
Okay.
say Brent Carper owns property A, B, and C, and his mailing address is the one listed for property C.
Okay, because of the mailing address. Okay.
okay. Okay,
I
so,
think that the tougher thing here, RJ, I don't think it's proving that it's your primary residence. Again, that's just not going to come up. What's going to come up is the second line. The individual must physically reside at the property. When I read this, I read it here the whole time we're talking, this is the opposite of vague. It couldn't be more specific. When somebody comes in and says your code is vague, I would say, you have got to be kidding me. It says it's got to be your primary residence for 6 months or more, right? It says you have to physically live there. Here's some examples of what wouldn't qualify. Property owner, property manager, other persons, those don't qualify. It couldn't be more specific.
Isn't that what we want?
Yeah, we do, and it is very specific.
Isn't that what the RCW, that's what the intent of the RCW is?
Well, I think we went even beyond. We said, this is really specific. Now, the only question is not whether the person actually is claiming it as their primary residence. I think the bigger issue is, are they really there? Because I can travel around the country in my van and, Center Street's my primary residence. That really wasn't the intent. The intent was that if you're at the property when this activity is going on, or it's you're dominantly at the property, maybe not every second, right? We all leave our properties, but you're pretty connected to this property. You're going to be aware of safety hazards that come up. You're certainly going to care about this property because you're coming back there someday, hopefully for more than 6 months of the year. The bigger issue really comes down to, are you physically there when the event goes on? I don't think proving your primary residence, that's so trivial. And it's really not providing any amount of securance that the neighbor isn't going to have the STR problem. Physically there, or there 6 months out of the year, that's going to be much harder to prove. Even if I show you my driver's license, even if I show you the assessor's record, am I really there?
I think you've just proved my point. So the RCW states that it must be a primary residence for at least 6 months out of the year.
But nobody can prove that, right? People
Right.
can travel all
That's
the
my
time.
point. Why have it in the code if we can't prove it right or wrong?
Well, I mean, it is inherent in almost all laws that are written that there is some ability that every single person in society isn't out to cheat the system. I think in this case, if we got to this, we got here because there were many other problems before we got here, and we had lots of opportunities to solve it. If we landed here and this is our biggest problem, something's gone wrong.
Can you name any other code in Title 17 that we can't verify?
So if you gave me that exercise to see, well, I'll tell you, I picked up more dog poop. There are so many ordinances that get violated in the city of Pullman. I shovel my neighbor every single time, never shovels his sidewalk. So all sorts of ordinances don't get enforced, right? Now, if I complained about my neighbor's poop and my neighbor's sidewalk constantly, I'll bet you'd fix it. I don't. I shovel a sidewalk and I pick up the poop. We have all sorts of those kinds of problems, and when you get a complaint, and you have somebody that comes in and says, look, my neighbor, I'm pretty sure is running an STR, and I don't think he lives there. And then you get a hold of that person and you say, look, we have a complaint. Can you prove that you meet this city ordinance? It's your primary residence, you live there, and the guy says, yeah, let me show you. I'll show you that I prove that it's my primary residence and that I live there. I think, like Jeff said, he'll probably show his driver's license. Showing that he's there for 6 months, he'll have to do something to prove that, but we got here because so many other things broke. This is not 2 failures, this is at least the 3rd failure before we got here.
Can I ask?
Okay, wait a minute. So let's imagine we take out the definition of long-term resident. Just delete it altogether. As I see it, the only time it appears is in eligible dwellings, 2, exemption. A long-term resident resides at the property. So we would have to deal with, we know who the owner is. That's obvious. The person that owns and holds legal and/or equitable title. We know who the owner is. Do we have a definition, an alternate to saying a long-term resident resides at the property for subparagraph A under exemption? It's the last line of the page. Because we're exempting properties that have a long-term resident at the property and renting 2 or fewer units. I'm not sure where else this long-term resident
That's it.
appears.
It's defined for this specific exemption.
Oh, okay, then we need to have, do we have an alternative then to saying a long-term resident resides at the property? Can we say a responsible person resides at the property as either the owner or I don't think we want to say that. We get into the laws of agency.
Too vague, yeah.
Yeah, we get into the laws of agency. Is so-and-so, is the owner's brother living on the property, the long-term resident?
Man, this is the trees, we are missing the forest for the trees. We are in the weeds
Yeah, I
about
think
something that is never, ever going to happen, and we're stressed out about it. What is written is just fine. RJ, to your point, chapter 17, there's an entire section about home occupations. And you guys have no way of verifying that I have a home occupation. You've never once checked how many employees I have all the rest of the stuff. There's tons of stuff in 17.
It's
that
on your
would be
business license.
really frickin' hard to enforce or look at. You could, it would take if it ever came up, if my neighbor ever got furious at me about the engineering practice I'm doing in my garage and my home occupation, they could call you and they could complain and we could go through it and we could figure it all out, and it would be a hassle and it would take work by staff to do it if it ever happened. So these things exist, and we deal with them when they happen, and I don't believe we have to write verbose, onerous code to address the what-ifs if those happen. I think there's tons of examples like that where investigation or enforcement would take work. It's not, if somebody calls, you can't just do it by email, you can't just do it in a single phone call, you can't cite code. It actually takes an investigation and an enforcement effort, unfortunately. That's just the way it works.
Mr. Chair? Yes, Joe. I don't know that there's actually, after thinking about it, I don't know that there's any resource, assessor's driver's license, that says that you live somewhere for at least 6 months. Those documents say it's your primary residence.
Right.
If you have 3 or more properties, you could live somewhere for 5 months, another place for 4 months, another place for 3 months. None of those things say you live there for 6 months. They just say it's your primary residence.
Right.
I don't know if that helps or hinders this conversation, but I think it's worth mentioning.
It just says, we live in a society, you can cheat and cheat and cheat and cheat. If you tried to write laws that forbid or made it so you could immediately enforce every single rule that you want to put into law, you'd be exhausted trying to do one of them.
Then why have an exemption? Why not leave the code how it was? You keep saying this is because of other issues. We didn't even get 3 months, and a staff, for people who went through the process, never got a complaint. And I think that's been one of the biggest problems on the staff side, is everyone's like, oh, there's a problem. It's like, from who? People who didn't go through the process, who anecdotally think that it's a hard thing? Why are they the ones who then get to decide if we're going to update code?
The problem is economics. It's to what Carl testified about earlier. The problem is that we, unfortunately, maybe unintentionally, discouraged the practice of short-term rentals. We put up perceived or real barriers, and we cut down on the number of lodging opportunities in Pullman, and we cut down on the home affordability mechanisms. That is the problem.
Because we opened it up and truly made an easier process? Like, it's going back to these perceived notions. Like, you want to talk about, oh, we can't base things off of hypotheticals.
I don't think we're going to agree with this. I come down to what is written as item number 2 as a long-term resident. I think that language is absolutely perfect and okay and will work fine. And 5 years from now, there may be a complaint, and there'll have to be an investigation, and that investigation may not be quite as easy as it could have been if we would have expanded this to put in a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Wait a minute. Jeff, do you have anything?
Basically, I mean, I agree with what's been said here, and what I'm hearing is you want to go back to the old code, which we've worked an awful long time to get here.
We worked a lot on the previous code, the currently adopted code. We
Okay.
had 9 months of public hearing,
I'm
public
sorry you're upset,
testimony for 3 months to then re-go into all of it off of hypotheticals and what-ifs. And now you all are upset we're talking about hypotheticals and what-ifs on this code when that's what got us here in the first place, is hypotheticals and what-ifs.
What happens if we take out the line that says the individual must physically reside at the property? What happens if we take that line out?
Then we're not aligned with RCW, because that line
okay.
that line is in the RCW.
Okay.
That's a direct quote.
Yes, that's the case, but the city can still regulate on its own. There's
Yeah.
nothing that prohibits us from regulating short-term rentals with city code, as long as it's consistent with state code, and the state exempts long-term resident, and 2 or few rooms rented, we can regulate long-term resident, 2 or few rooms rented, we can do a lot of things.
A second point, actually. I actually, believe that it should be enforceable, et cetera. But at a particular point, when we're only considering this for one particular exemption, that's the exemption for 2 bedrooms. And there aren't a lot of people who are going to let people into their house, into bedrooms, not the house, but bedrooms, when they're not there. Because this is a different type of short-term rental,
And I need to, I misspoke. That sentence is not in RCW. The RCW stops at the calendar year. So the
Let's
sentence says
dump
the
it.
individual must physically reside at the property. We added that. So yeah,
Let's dump
my
it.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get rid of it, because that seems to be the constraint.
So then we just primary residence, and then maybe it's easier to determine, but we're not going to really have an occupancy aspect to it.
Mr. Chair, staff collectively is going to have a hard time supporting new code which can't be verified or enforced.
I don't accept that it can't be verified or enforced. I think you can still verify and enforce it without us spelling out exactly how you verify and enforce it. I think, yeah.
I think we need to accept the expertise of the staff at this point.
Yeah.
They're the people who are going to be dealing with it.
I agree.
Okay, so then what is the proposal by staff? A person who occupies the dwelling as a primary residence for at least 6 months during the calendar year as indicated on county assessor records, and then strike out the individual must physically reside at the property? Does that work?
That is much better. I mean,
Okay.
we need to have some bar level to verify that that somebody's short-term rental is their primary residence.
Okay.
I don't, like I've said right off the top, I don't know what the downside of providing that bar in the definition is, or providing that bar in the code, whether it's assessor records, driver's license, tax return, just something.
Okay, those will all define primary residence. So we're just really, so we could take out everything and just say, well, okay, let's not go there. Let's just say, a person who occupies the dwelling as their primary residence for at least 6 months during the calendar year as documented in county assessor, tax assessor, or whatever.
By documents including tax records, comma, driver's license, comma, and/or assessor records. I think that was redundant, but you know what I mean.
We want to make it simple for staff.
Yeah,
This is where I live, here's my driver's license, end of conversation.
okay.
Let's just do that then.
I would say state ID instead of driver's license.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So that if, once again, the neighbor complains, hey, I never see John Smith here, we investigate, sorry neighbor, the driver's license says
It's primary residence.
Center Street,
Yep.
says Atani Drive.
Okay,
We're moving on.
Okay.
I'm okay. Scott, are you okay with that?
So you would just add, as verified by state ID. So
Or
at
county
least 6
tax
months
records.
during the calendar year, as verified by state ID.
It's just got to have something to verify it by.
Okay.
I put state-issued identification.
I'm sorry, what?
State-issued identification.
Yeah, that's good, because they
Yeah,
might not
yeah.
have a driver's license. They
Government
might have
issue.
a good point.
Fantastic, Anna.
Yeah.
And then strike an individual must physically reside at the property.
Right, because I don't know how we would
Right, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
set up cameras. I don't know, what do we do
Yeah.
with that? Like
okay.
You do a stakeout.
All right.
stakeout, yeah.
Brent, is that first sentence verbatim out of the RCW, a person who occupies, so on?
RCW said, RCW says, short-term rental does not include the following, and then a dwelling unit that is occupied by the owner for at least 6 months during the calendar year and in which fewer than 3 rooms are rented at any time.
There's no definition in the RCW for long-term resident that we're following?
No.
Okay. This addresses the second comment then regarding property versus dwelling as well, right? We're taking that out?
Well, because that sentence goes away, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
But we do see the words property and dwelling during the course of this
Yeah.
chapter. In my mind, it should say property because of the possibility of either a duplex or an accessory dwelling unit.
Exactly.
I agree, and that's why I was asking about the RCW.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Because the RCW says dwelling,
Right. Dwelling unit.
but I agree property is better.
And we discussed that before. We expanded it to be property in case, because of ADUs and stuff like that. If there's multiple dwelling units on one property,
Right.
we intentionally changed that, so yeah. Yep. All right, moving on.
Are we moving on?
Yes, please.
Okay,
So you have, or Ario, you have by, you're just going to add a comma as verified by state-issued identification.
Government issued. And then I guess based off of that, so a person who occupies the property as their primary residence, correct?
yes, yes,
That's what we've
The
decided?
person who occupies, right, the property.
yes.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
As their primary residence for at least 6 months during the calendar year as verified by their government-issued identification.
Okay. Or county tax records.
That's not complicated, just keep it.
identification.
Okay, just the state issued identification? Okay, okay. All righty. So we have the property versus dwelling issue resolved. What's next?
Yeah, and so that resolves Ariel's comment there on 2A below, right?
Does that resolve 2A?
Yes.
Okay. 2B, how will staff verify this? I don't know, that's difficult.
I think that one's easy, though. That comes down to exactly what staff's done before. They've been on Airbnb and on the platforms, looking at how things are being advertised. So I actually think that was a pretty, again, if and when it ever comes up, because it's complaint-driven or something like that, and staff has to do an investigation, I think it'll be pretty clear based on how people have published their STRs.
I think it's clearly a violation if the advertisement is advertising the entire house and and they say, I'm only renting 2 bedrooms. I advertise the house, but I only rent 2 bedrooms. It's easy to verify based upon falsely advertising what you are renting to people. Is there a corner case where somebody can advertise that they're only renting 2 bedrooms, but they're really renting 3? Because I don't know how they do that, but again, I think we're so far in the weeds here. We're trying to solve the most trivial of problems. The advertisement is clearly going to be a violation when they start advertising beyond 2 bedrooms. So how the two got paired, right? These pairing services that take the guest and the host, that advertisement is clearly going to state 2 bedrooms or less, probably a bedroom. The second they start advertising a 3rd bedroom in the house and they're claiming a 2-bedroom or less exemption, doesn't work.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you on this one, Scott. It makes it easier to verify on standard VRBO and Airbnb. I guess it's those other options which make it harder. Though I tend to agree with you, this doesn't provide that big of an issue. It makes me wonder, however, should we limit the number of persons on this? Because if it's just 2 bedrooms, it'd be a max 4 people, right?
6.
That's not what it says, though.
2 per bedroom plus 2. So it'd
Well,
be
then it
6.
wouldn't be just two, well, it wouldn't be just 2 bedrooms then. Where would the plus 2 be? Right, so you're renting out the living room as well? I mean,
Well, I think the intent of at some point you grow to an awfully large number of people in a house. If you have an 8-member household, 8 of you live there, you, your wife, and 6 kids all live in the house, and you're renting out multiple bedrooms in your house, and suddenly you're getting to 14 and 16 people in a house, I'm not sure that that's a great setup.
yeah.
Your neighbors are probably not going to be real keen on it, the bathrooms, it's a lot of people in a, now, I'm not saying the house couldn't support it. Some very large 1-acre properties with huge houses probably could have 16 people, no problem. I just think you've entered into perhaps more of a different kind of business than the one that is applying for this exemption. I mean, that people buy short-term rentals specifically for large family gatherings, business retreats. It's a big part of the Airbnb experience, but they're not applying for the exemption, right? Those are businesses that are targeting that kind of market.
To me, this isn't that big of an issue. I think
Okay.
it's easily verifiable. If someone's renting 2 bedrooms and there's 5 cars in the parking lot that aren't registered to the homeowner,
Yeah.
I mean, there are ways.
When,
And I think the neighbor will take a picture of that, right?
Exactly. When
He'll be
somebody
like,
complains-
look at all of these California plates, right? He's got 5 cars in his driveway, all with California plates, and after the game was over, they all disappeared. How in the heck did 5 people all drive their cars here and show up for 2 bedrooms? Maybe. That's a question to ask him.
yeah, and again, with a complaint thing, even the complaint we keep coming back to the city got, the complaint, attached to the complaint letter or email was screenshots of Airbnb, right? So this will be a pretty easy one. Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay. Let's see, the next issue anybody else have anything? Okay, the next issue, changed to, under 17.109.040 requirements, 1, compliance with state law. Staff is recommending change that to state requirements. Anybody have any difficulty with that?
No, I think that's a good change. It needs to be requirements with an S, plural.
Okay. Then the next one is general business rental endorsement.
I'm sorry. The 17-109-040, the intro paragraph, the following criteria must be met for approval of an STR. That is different, that's a different intro sentence than what Scott had in his document. I'm not sure that was an intentional thing, but let me go back and look at that.
So I had STRs must meet the following requirements. 1, compliance with state now requirements. STRs must meet the following requirements, which even makes compliance with state requirements probably more.
I like that better than having the approval in here, because this is now in a requirement section, it's not an approval section.
The intent of this, what I was really trying to do is, as we saw in the 12 additional letters we saw, right? Can we just make this as easy as possible for those who want to give this a try, to give it a try? And so I said, all right, well, let's just divide it up. Let's make the state as simple as possible and the city requirements as simple as possible, keeping in mind the one thing we're after is trying to make sure we do it safely, but it's just, can we make it just so people look at it and say, it looks pretty simple, I'll give it a try.
I'll do this legally, yeah.
Instead of the gray market, or instead of lying, this isn't bad. I don't know why I would cheat. This looks pretty easy.
Okay, you've lost me here. I don't.
So
the-
I would
this-
just say STR, so going back to what I opened this with, John.
Yeah.
17-109-040 requirements, the very first sentence says, STRs must meet the following requirements. First requirements they have to meet is they have to be compliant with state requirements. And then we list out the state requirements. Second thing they have to do
Okay,
is,
well, wait a minute. Are we talking about this opening sentence then?
Yeah.
Is that?
Just change that sentence.
just change that sentence.
I don't,
STRs must meet the following requirements, colon.
doesn't make much difference to me.
Is this where you are?
This section used to be an approval, a permit and approval section, and now it's a requirement section. So the old language doesn't really make sense. The approval language doesn't really make sense anymore.
I think the approval makes you wonder what,
What, yeah.
right, what's going on.
I don't see, yeah. The original is fine with me, but I just don't see a lot of difference here. But like I said, I've made my living filling out forms.
Well, it's fewer words, just trying to make it as simple as possible to say. you
Okay,
just-
so
You must meet the following requirements. Number one,
Okay,
you got to
go-
be compliant with state law.
okay, so what's the first sentence again?
STRs must meet the following requirements.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Compliance with state law, changes to requirement for compliance with state requirements.
Correct.
The business, about the business license, you're asking to replace that with a fairly complicated sentence here, but I think it's a fairly complicated and explicit sentence that what the business license must say, must do.
Yeah, that's good, to have the actual NAICS, have that just specifically, I think that's great. I like that change.
Okay?
Is this,
It's too
so
long.
this is all about enforcement, right? This has got a little more teeth in it than what I had?
It's just more accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more explicit, okay.
So when Sean Miller, who is our economic development manager, reviews business licenses, like one of the things he checks is your NAICS code. And so he's been reaching out to people who've been filling out business licenses, putting the wrong code on it to be like, hey, based off of what you're doing, this is the proper code.
So if they were
Even
doing
though
the
it's
business license, they would
in the
look right
application.
at this and they'd say, I now know what to select in there when I'm filling it out, because it says right here what to select.
Sure. I've never filled out a business license.
All right, well, if it helps with filling out the business license, I'm
Yeah.
all for it. We've got mixed reviews on how easy that is to do, right?
Okay. The next item is,
So we approve that, the whole.
yeah, that whole long.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, payment of taxes. I'm not sure exactly what your point is here.
So based off of how, whichever section
050.
it is written, we would have to verify that they are paying their taxes. Because it says, we'll review compliance with 17-109-040, and part of that is that you, payment of taxes. So then, with how 050 is written, it would either need to be updated that part of your renewal is providing us with those tax records, or it needs to be removed from 040, that it's not part of what we are reviewing.
I think that's a reasonable change, providing proof of taxes paid. We require it for contractors for affidavit of wages paid. I mean, that's the only way to document.
But the only time staff is going to review and approve something is prior to somebody ever having rented their STRs. Therefore, they would have never paid rental tax before, or lodging tax before, so there's nothing to verify, right? And then on renewals, it's a self-attestation. So again, staff isn't verifying anything on a renewal. So I think it's a moot point, isn't it? Am I missing something?
I think it just goes back to we work for local government, we assume the worst, and you all are just community members who want to go based off of
Right, but-
self-verification. It's
but-
just going back to I have to assume that people aren't going to tell us the truth.
But again,
And so with how it's written,
Okay.
we
Oh,
would then,
'cause the
that's
require-
part
okay.
of the verification.
so if there was a complaint, we're back to I was thinking about an application and approval the first time. You're thinking about a complaint and an investigation and enforcement.
And renewal.
Okay. Well, why, on renewals, you're not doing any verification on the renewal?
But if we say that they have to pay
Okay.
their taxes,
But if you do, if you
Then-
use
then-
any of the platforms, Airbnb, VRBO, you can't not pay the taxes.
Well, but there's no requirement that somebody has to be listed on a
No,
platform.
that's true.
There's no-
But if you're in the gray market, there's no reason for you to pay any attention to these regulations at all.
That's right, but I think so what you're saying is, the way that it's written now, in the course of a renewal.
it'd just be easier on staff if it was taken out.
I'm sorry, yeah, in the course
Just
of a
take
renewal.
out the whole thing.
Yeah,
Just the property tax.
Or just take out that
payment
I?
of taxes.
Just strike out I?
Yep, and we just have the two there.
Yeah. yeah,
Okay.
Oh,
That
yeah,
works.
okay, I like that.
Okay. Okay,
Should have led with that.
oh,
So now we're down.
yeah, the smoke detectors, I think that's in the code, isn't it? That smoke detectors can't be more than 10 years old?
What code?
The, I don't know. It can't be in the building code because once it's built, it's built.
I think the comment from the billing official is how do we know how old a smoke
Yeah,
detector is?
Yeah,
It's really easy to tell. They all have stamps and stickers on them now, and they have for 18-plus years. And if it doesn't have a date on it, then I guarantee it's older than 10 years.
So Jeremy's example was what's stamped on there is typically the manufactured date. But the battery doesn't start until you pull the tab,
Yeah.
flip it on, whatever it
Yeah.
may be, and that's the 10 years it's good for. So if you just go based on the manufacturer's date and it's been sitting on a shelf for 5 years, based on the date, you have 5 years before you have to get a new one.
I think we're back to the point of asking the staff to review something that, the difficulty of reviewing it is more than what it's worth.
Yeah, yeah.
And most smoke detectors you get nowadays are all going to be interconnected.
Yeah.
So now we're back to people who are complaining, like, I already have smoke detectors that work,
Yeah.
why do I need to get new ones?
Right.
I think we
I
should-
can't tell you how old the ones in my house are, but they still work.
I think we should take it out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, thinking. Yeah,
They all swap smoke detectors of 10 years or more for state ID.
Okay. All right.
Make
So-
sure you take the whole sentence out, not just the highlighted part.
all required
but-
detectors must be operational. I mean, they all have some way of testing them.
Yeah. All right.
And, yeah, okay. Okay, posted information.
Do you have a copy of the certificate that we could see? Can you?
If we want to wait for the projector to come down, I can.
Oh, okay.
I don't see any difficulty with leaving this in the code. First of all, we've already had one person who said that she provided her own. And she provided her own document. What this section does is tells somebody what information has to be posted, has to be available. I'm inclined to leave this in, the way that it's written, so that somebody who wants to provide a document can do so. Will know what has to be there. I agree that the certificate that you provide is really helpful. But I think if somebody wants to write their own document, let them.
Okay.
I agreed. Ariel, I think the certificate, I don't know why I wouldn't use it,
Yeah,
but in sitting on the Whitman County Landlord Association, there's there's a group that provides what they believe meets exactly what all of the state laws are for long-term rentals. And surprisingly, the property owners here all make up their own. And I'm not sure they're any better than what they could have gotten for free. Somehow they think they're better, and they use their own. It has all the information, it meets all the requirements, but they do.
I still think that it should be on the one that the city signs, because if we put your occupancy limit. So if we don't give that with something with our signature, what's stopping them from being like, oh, the city told me 4, but I'm gonna put 6, I'm gonna put 8,
Oh, like,
on the one that they're providing?
so on the application, they would tell you they're only gonna put, say, 8 people. They can rent to 8 people. But and they've already told you that, but then they go back and say, yeah, I told her that, but I'm really gonna put 10 on my certificate that I post inside here, because maybe someday 10 will show up, and I don't want them to think they can only have 8.
I like the certificate because it has a sense of authenticity, and it also provides a consistent look and feel.
Are you suggesting that we require that the city's certificate be posted on the property?
That's part of the requirement now. You get your approval certificate, and on it, it says this will be posted in a conspicuous location.
Okay, okay. Okay, then I'm not sure what your point is about this posted information. Are you asking us to remove the kinds of things that are on this, the items that are on the certificate?
Floor plan, location only.
So this is going back to like, based on 0501, we're verifying this information. We already provide this information to them. We give them the emergency and non-emergency lines. We give them their occupancy limits. We put on there what the address is. We had an application where the property owner kept saying in all the correspondence the wrong address than what the actual address is. So on the certificate, we have the proper address on there. And so it's like, we are already providing some of this information. We don't need them to have us then verify and then put it on the certificate anyway, when we're already providing that. So as it says, you know, they need to provide us with the floor plan and then where it needs to be posted. Like, that's what we can put in here as like the stuff we're verifying. But we don't need them to verify. We don't need them to tell us what the emergency number is. We already ask how many people and how many bedrooms to show occupancy.
So you're advocating that the only certificate that could be displayed is the one, they've given you information and you give that back in this official certificate, and that's the only one that they can use?
Yes. I mean, if they want to have a separate one that they also have that is pretty, I think our certificate's pretty okay looking, personally. But if they want to have a secondary one in the upstairs, they can do that. I mean, obviously, if people look at it and they're like, oh, there's discrepancies, hopefully they'd say something like, oh, the official city one says 6, but this one upstairs says 8. They might not look at either. But having the consistent city-approved certificate, as Lorena said, keeps it consistent. It's the same for everyone. It's showing that they truly did go through the process.
And I think that's fine now if we're not requiring it to be mounted on the back of the door or something. But previously, when there was a perception that it had to be mounted on the back of the door, now there's 2 things that have to be mounted on the back of the door, because one, it has to be the city certificate, but I still need the floor plan, so now I have 2 things to mount, whereas we've heard testimony from people who they created their own that was all in one, maybe smaller, maybe more complete. So I'm struggling with a little bit that we're saying, well, you have to use this thing provided by the city, but it's not comprehensive because you still have to have your egress plan. So now you have 2 different things you have to do, because the egress plan isn't part of the certificate, obviously, right? So it's 2 different things, and I can see people saying, no, I only want one thing. I'm going to put it all in one. My posted information, it's going to be one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Now that it's in a book, if it's 2 different things, maybe it's okay. But I'm a little bit leery dictating to somebody exactly how they have to post the information and what, we can dictate content and what needs to be there, because that's what state law does, but to actually dictate what they post, I'm not sure.
I do think it's a good idea to require the posting of the city certificate, because it shows that this place has the stamp of the city of Pullman. And I think that's a very good thing. Secondly, if somebody wants to post that information again someplace else, go ahead. But my third point is, we are requiring contact information for the owner or operator. Is that on the city certificate?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chair.
So I think requiring posting in subparagraph B, requiring posting of only the floor plan provided someplace else, they have to post the city certificate, that's fine with me.
I think we should keep it is recommended information is mounted on a wall, alternatively provided a hard copy house manual. Keeping those last two sentences is great, because it tells them where they can put it. But I think since this is what we are using to verify and approve their application, we already provide that information to them. We don't need, like I said, we know the emergency number. We don't need them to tell us that. Based on how this is written, they would have to provide that.
So what is the specific language for B that you would be proposing then? How would that be worded?
So I think so we'll say, obviously, as per RCW, currently enacted or amended. Oh, it's been such a long day. I think we just say, the required information, we just stick with the floor plan, showing fire exits and escape routes, and then go into, it is recommended it's posted on a wall. If this is what we're using to verify their application, all we are really looking at is the floor plan and then the questions that they answer in the application.
So you're crossing out the second sentence, or you're replacing the second sentence, is that correct? No.
We'd leave the floor plan indicating fire exit and escape routes.
Okay. So it would read, B, posted information. The STR must comply with the posting requirements of RCW 6437030C as currently enacted or amended, period. The required information includes the city-provided certificate and a floor plan indicating fire exits and escape routes, and escape routes, period.
Yes.
It is recommended that the information be bound on a wallet or alternative may be provided, blah, blah, blah. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine.
I can live with that.
Yep. Okay. Oh, this business about pools and spas. Boy, I really don't want to have to deal with pools and spas. Yeah, just making reference to the International Pool and Spa Code makes sense to me.
I'm fine with that. Can we back
Yeah.
up to fire extinguishers, though?
Oh, okay.
I'm just challenged with what was added here at the end. For the very last, it says, we had in here, or a special purpose model specifically designed for kitchen or cooking fires with a UL rating of, it was just a UL rating of 10 BC. That was changed to be A:10 BC, which isn't, it's missing a number. It has to be A something. And if it has an A, it's not going to be a kitchen cooking fire specific design. Those are in conflict.
So that was from Darren.
Okay.
He said, at a minimum, it should be an ABC if they want a 1A, a 2A, a 10A.
Okay,
That's
then
fine.
I'm just saying, so from what I've looked at, you can't buy a low-flow kitchen model cooking fire, one of those specialty fire extinguishers. They don't have an A rating. So what we have written here, I guess what we would change it is to, the sentence would be, a wall-mounted dry chemical extinguisher with a UL rating of, currently says 2A, you're saying we could just change it with I'd say minimum UL rating of 1A, 10BC, period, stop. Take out all the rest of the special purpose model stuff. Is that okay?
I can ask Darren, I'm not a
Okay.
fire marshal. He
Yeah.
says he would like a 2A, just period.
Oh, I thought you just said 1A.
Well, no, he said if we wanted to have a or,
Oh, okay.
it should just be at least an ABC.
Okay.
So that way, no matter what fire you have, there is at least a fire extinguisher that could be used.
Okay.
Because if you have the kitchen one, but the trash light's on fire, it's not gonna put out the trash fire.
Okay. And did this change, did we have that it had to be wall-mounted before? Or was that a recommendation? It was, okay. I know we talked about that.
No,
All right.
Darren's always wanted it wall-mounted.
All right, so I would be okay with this then saying a wall-mounted dry chemical extinguisher with a minimum, so add the word minimum, UL rating of 2A, 10BC, period. And take out the rest of it.
So, yeah, so if it were me, I would also put one of these small aerosol cans that you can put out a small kitchen fire. Because I don't want that guy grabbing the 2A and going, right?
Yeah.
It's a mess when it's a simple thing to put out. But that's my prerogative, right? The code doesn't say I have to do it, but I would do it.
Yeah.
And it's just extra. But I don't have to do it.
We can have a secondary sentence that says it is recommended to have an additional, let me bring it back.
I would put recommendations.
Let's just put the minimum requirements
Yeah.
and walk away.
Yeah.
And people can talk amongst themselves and get guidance from their friends and buddies about best practices.
Yeah, we don't want to put recommendations. I don't think.
Airbnb can do best practices. I think we just have the minimum requirements.
So we're going to wall mount a 2A, 10B, C extinguisher. And then we're done. That's the only thing that's required
Yep.
in a conspicuous location.
I can add that.
Yeah, I suspect
it's in there.
I suspect it's a conspicuous color. Unless you have, a red kitchen.
A 2A, 10BC
yeah.
is going to be conspicuous, whatever.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
small, right? Yeah.
The kitchen ones are white, or is that marine?
No, they're
The
red.
kitchen was white too, yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments about pools and spas aside from accepting the language that Ariel has suggested?
I'm fine with it.
Good change.
Okay. We have this last group of comments.
Can I ask that maybe you just tell us what you think it should say? All said and done,
Oh, hold on. I'm still making the,
just because there's so many within that one paragraph?
oh, well, the first one was just, it's just called an affidavit of conformance.
Yeah.
Do we want the real name in there, or do we just want to say affidavit as
Okay.
provided by the city?
So change affidavit to affidavit of conformance?
Yeah, just because that's what it's called, so if they look it up. Oh, Jeremy wanted it to say that the SCR meets all requirements when the initial inspection was performed and passed. Fees are set by city council, not by code, so take away, because city council could choose that these now do have a fee, and then we'd have to do a code update. And then this has the 60 days to comply. I guess it's only been the once, because code hasn't been around for that long. I have it in there that I have it set December 1st, send the email with the affidavit. They have 2 months to get it done. Giving them an additional 60 days seems like a lot.
I need help understanding the schedule, because I've had people ask me questions about this. So permits are valid until January 31st of the following year.
Yes.
Okay, so my permit doesn't go till December 31st, my permit goes till January 31st.
Yes.
Right? And then I have 2 months after that to renew it? Is that what you said?
No, so in December, I email everyone saying, hey, your your permit will expire January 31st, whatever the next year will be. So this coming December, I'll say, your permit will expire January 31st of 2027. Attached is your affidavit of conformance. This
Oh,
needs to be
that's where the
submitted to
2 months is. You
Yes.
email 2 months in advance?
Yes.
Okay, and somebody can renew it
As soon
December
as that
2nd.
email gets sent out, yeah.
Right, okay, they don't have to, okay. So they can renew it in December.
Correct.
But that doesn't change their end date.
Nope. So if they renew it December 3rd of 2026, the next permit will expire January 31st of 2028.
Okay, yep.
Is there a reason for the January 31 date?
I'll be honest, that's still a holdover from when we were still doing annual inspections.
Okay.
And January is a slow time for the inspectors.
Oh, okay.
So business licenses, like the state business license and the endorsement, those are a 12-month based on when I actually apply and get my business license, right? It's a revolving thing?
You are the one who has the business.
Sorry?
I don't know that. I don't own a
Okay.
business.
I'm just trying to remember how it works. So I get that thing from the state every day, and it says I'm supposed to post it, and I stick it in the file drawer, and I forget about it. But I think mine is in February sometime, because I think probably in 2004, I got it in February. And so I don't think it's tied to a calendar year. I think they go all the time. So it feels weird that the schedule for the state business license and all that is different from the city's permit when they're tied together. It feels like those dates should align.
How would we do that?
What's that?
How would we do that?
Well, you're going to get the business license and endorsement, so you have the date, right?
But this way, it's a lot easier on staff, where we
Yeah.
just send out one bulk email where we BCC everyone.
Right.
To then being like, oh, we'll have to check on this permit. The next week, oh, I need to
Right.
check on these permits.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And since so, this is going to sound harsh, but my goal in life is not to make things easy for staff. My goal in life is to make it easier for the people who are going to do Airbnbs. However, the fact that you're providing a service where you proactively send something out and notify them in December that their permit's expiring, I think that's a really beneficial service and kind thing for the city to do to help people stay current and not forget. And so I'm more inclined to let the city batch them in exchange for that service.
I agree. I think doing it once a year is fine, except for I am curious, so how does it work if somebody applies or starts doing it in like January, first week of January? And do they have to immediately do an affidavit?
No, we just put it for the next year.
Or is there a cutoff? Like at some point, there is like an inconvenient time to apply for these, it seems like.
We did
Yes.
have a letter from somebody, or I saw a letter from somebody who was like, they went through the process and they got all their stuff in September or October, since it was relatively new, and then boom, they got to renew again. They're like, what?
But it's free, so I guess it's not that big a deal.
Yeah,
But
it
that is
surprised
kinda-
them. They assumed they were getting a one-year permit.
Yeah, okay. If you had to pay, this would be a bigger conversation.
Exactly, yes,
Which you-
for sure.
Yeah, I think the big thing in my mind is, I have subscription renewals and membership renewals and so forth coming at various times. I don't know when they are. I don't know when I should be writing a check. In this case, if the city, capital T, capital C, forgets to tell all these people, your renewal is coming up, there's going to be a real problem, on February 1, when the city starts saying, well, we've canceled all your canceled all these short-term rentals. So you really have to do it, and I would rather see that, see the pressure on the city staff to do something about these renewals 60 days beforehand. I think that's much better than the alternative, as RJ said. Every month you have to look up which short-term rentals are coming up for termination.
I think the fact that the city is notifying December 1st or whatever, and then you have until January 31st, and you do have 2 months, I think that makes a lot of sense. I didn't understand that. I think I was the one that poked Scott, and I said, hey, I'm a little bit concerned about January is sometimes a tough time for people in Pullman. A lot of people take vacation in January. It's break and everything, and so if I have to do this in January, maybe I need a little more time. So I think I poked Scott to, let's bump that from 30 to 60. But now that I understand the process better, I don't know that it needs to be 60.
Also, you don't have to submit it in person. You can email us your affidavit, and
Yeah.
you can get a notary anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, they might charge you.
right.
Mr. Chair. Ariel, so I think about two things, right?
Yeah.
You like the idea of batching, but let's say you're not doing the job anymore. And it seems to me that spreading the workload, I can't imagine, well, in an ideal situation, you would take the 100 short-term rentals and spread them equally amongst the 12 months, right? So you wouldn't have to do 100 all in the January timeframe. Do you think somebody else would also think that it's preferable to batch everything into 1 month's activities as opposed to spreading the workload amongst 12 months?
I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I think it's easier because since it's just the affidavit that however you get it to us, we go in, update your certificate, RJ signs it, we scan it in, send it to you saying, here's your new certificate, we update your
Yeah,
application record.
all right.
10 minutes?
I would have just thought the other way around. I would have thought spreading the workload would have been a little bit easier, that you're doing, 100 divided by 12. Maybe you're doing 10 of them a month kind of thing, so.
You don't have to have any record of expiration dates, though, when they're batched. Like, you don't have to look anything up.
Yeah.
Everybody expires at the same time.
It's harder to notify people when it's, oh, yours expires September 19th, this one's October 5th, this
Yeah, yeah.
one's
So I do see
May
that that's
4.
easier. I also worried about, since there's 2 renewals that need to take place. One I get to remember myself, which is the business license. Maybe I forget. And then you send me a notice that I need to renew my affidavit for the city of Pullman. I'm like, oh my gosh, 6 months ago. This is so crazy. My business license is in June, and the city's in January, and I forgot to do it in June. Now what do I do? Kind of thing, right? So when the two align, when they're both on the same month, because initially they would be, and after that initial date, they depart, right? So my business license is always in June. My city is always in just January. It makes it a bit harder, and then I think, oh my gosh, I forgot to do that dang business license thing, and now it's 6 months past. So that was so it's, in my thought, it spreads it to have it on all the months, and I'm renewing both licenses at the same time.
But let's say someone already has a short-term rental at one property, they buy another one, they're doing it there. Are we supposed to wait to approve their short-term rental permit until their business license is up? Because we're not going to say that their permit for the new property matches their previous
Yeah.
one.
All right, so if they have a dozen of these rentals, they're all going to be at different dates unless they did them all at the same time. I see that. All right. Well, so it sounds like we're back to if this is easier for you and your predecessor, then I'm fine.
Does the state not send out reminders for business licenses? Oh.
Apparently, you just put them in your filing cabinet.
I believe that your business license is also supposed to be posted in a conspicuous location.
I have that big human resources poster that you're supposed to put up too, right? So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I get disgruntled at myself, I can file a claim against, yeah. Exactly.
I didn't renew my driver's license in time, and they almost denied me at the bank.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did that recently. I was a week off.
We could.
Week late.
Okay,
So we'll remove the 60 days then?
For 30? I'm still fine saying past your, we currently have that in there, you
It's
have
currently
30 days
30, right?
past your expiration. before we
Okay,
get upset and
okay,
wave
yeah,
the finger
let's,
at you.
I'd prefer to make it 30. Yeah,
So just strike 60 to 30.
yes. Okay, can we back up just a bit? There is no fee and no inspection for the renewal. You've told us that the city council sets fees, so we can't say anything about fees here. But are we going to leave in there is no inspection for the renewal?
We can.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, then people would know.
No required inspection?
There's
Or
no,
just no inspection?
there's no inspection for the renewal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, then, let's see. Then the last item you have, an inspection may be required. I assume it's Jeremy who's telling you that if a new application is required, a new inspection will need to be performed also.
Yeah,
So you're saying an inspection will be required?
yes.
Okay,
If they submit a new application, they go through the process all over again,
Okay.
which includes the inspection. But theoretically, if it's just because they lapsed it by 2 weeks, all of that stuff should be there still.
yeah,
So it should be a very easy process. And we still allow same-day inspections for short-term rentals. They call before 9, they can get it the same day.
okay.
The last thing I had is, in Scott's version, the non-transferability, the 060, wasn't a separate section, it was number 3 under 050. Is there a reason that needs to be a whole separate section and not just a number 3 under the application and annual permit? Because the non-transferability is only about the application and annual permit. It just seems like it should just be a number 3.
We can, and looking at other places in the whole city code, it is its own section other
Okay.
places, so it was just for consistency, but we can throw it in there as number 3 still.
Okay, yeah, it is, yes. I think it's better to leave it the way that it is in other parts of the code.
Do you think, John, is it clear, though, that it only, so the non-transferability in 060 only applies to what is happening in 050? It's not a standalone section. In other words, it doesn't look backwards beyond 050. The reason to bury it in 050 is that it is specific to the things in 050. There's nothing else that's transferable except for what's in 050. When it's a separate section, then I think, oh, well, it's pretty applicable to all of 17109. No, that's not true.
But we even say, an STR permit and the associated business license are not transferable. So we're saying that their permit and their business license can't be transferred.
I think it's simpler and cleaner as number 3 into this whole section. It just, to me, it keeps it cleaner.
No, I think, like I said, if it's this way in the rest of the city code, and I think basically, it's not part of the application and annual permit. Non-transferability is not part of the application and annual permit. It's part of the business license and the short-term rental permit. I mean, that paragraph exists in and of itself, as far as I can tell.
The non-transferability is referring also to the Department of Revenue business license, not just the permit. I think it makes sense to have it in its own 060, and it calls out the specific things in the very first sentence. It's pretty clear what it's addressing.
Is that true that you can't transfer a business license? If I sold my company to somebody, I can't transfer the business license now?
I think you have to get your own business license.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right, Joe, it does.
Business license is not issued to the company as an entity?
If you bought somebody's,
corporation.
if
Yeah.
you bought somebody's business, you're gonna have to go through your own paperwork with the state. You can't just buy the business and be like, the state doesn't
Yeah.
even know my name, because I bought it.
Yeah, I guess
privately.
it's different because I'm a corporation. Okay.
All right.
I'm not gonna die on that hill. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, issues with what we've just been through?
Do we need to read through number 2 in its updated entirety? Or are we comfortable having gone through that
With
piecemeal?
all the changes?
You're right. Do you have number 2 updated, Ariel, sorry?
Yes. So 17-109-050-2, annual renewal. STR permits are valid until January 31 of the following year. The renewal is a one-page city-provided affidavit of conformance affirming the STR still meets all requirements that were in place when the initial inspection was performed and passed. There is no inspection for the renewal. If an STR permit is not renewed by the expiration date, the owner will have 30 days to comply with the renewal process, or the STR permit will be revoked and a new application must be submitted and an inspection will be required.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All
This-
right,
You'll probably catch this audio, but right at the top, it says Chapter 17.185.
Oh, I hate headings. Thank you.
oops. Okay. So, are we done? Conduct a public hearing on Pullman City Code, Chapter 17.109, short-term rentals. Is the staff satisfied with answering the questions that you had? I didn't say happy, but satisfied.
Well, I'm just verifying that we got to them. I think the only other question
Yeah,
on, not board docs, diligent, that wasn't really in the questions in the code was, which I think we kind of touched on it, but with the exception, how is it different if we say that they only have to live there for 6 months, but then they go away for that weekend when they're doing the short-term rental? How is that functionally different than if they're not there at all?
well, yeah, I thought about this while I was riding my bicycle this evening. You know, somebody can be in the next, on the other side of the country or even out of the country, or somebody can be in Lewiston for dinner that night. There's not that much difference. And I think it's just, we need to have a phone number where somebody can be contacted all the time. And that's in the code, and that's on the certificate that you give to people. I'm not sure beyond that there's a lot that we can do. Safety, with regard to safety, we can hope that people will actually look at those phone numbers. Everybody knows to call 911 if the house is on fire. We can hope that people will look up the non-emergency number if there's water running down the street and no accounting for it. With regard to accountability, contactability, and so forth, I agree that an owner, operator, person responsible can be not on the property, can be out of town, any number of possibilities, and I'm not
Might be at
just
the
not
football
sure-
game.
You might be at the football game, yeah. I mean that's no joke. I mean, you can be right in the middle of Martin Stadium when somebody calls and says, the smoke detector is going off. What do I do?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think one of the important parts of the 6-month on site or whatever is having someone there who's like seeing
That
issues, and fixing problems and making it a safe environment. And so that doesn't have to happen while a tenant is there.
I think it's perfectly okay if somebody leaves for 6 months during the peak visitor time to Pullman, be that football weekend or whatever it is, or football season, and they're gone for those entire 4 or 5 months, 6 months, and they STR the whole time they're gone. I think that's okay. I don't think the intention was that it was just a weekend and they were they were going to be there on Friday and they'd be back on Monday and they'd just be gone Saturday, Sunday, I think it's fine if they're gone for a whole chunk of time. Go on sabbatical. Like, we have a lot of people who go on sabbatical for 3-4 months, and if they want to STR their home or a portion of their home while they're on a 4-month sabbatical out of the country, I think that's perfectly okay.
Let's also keep in mind, though, that it only applies to those instances where you have 2 bedrooms. So it's limited in scope.
Yes. Yes.
But then we're saying that if you aren't there the 6 months with 2 bedrooms, you have to follow this code, but in functionality, they're kind of the same.
Yes.
So, and believe it or not, Jeremy's more pessimistic than I am. And so he kind of was the creator of this question, was like, well, if they're not there when they're renting anyway, like, what's the difference? It's like, true.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know, because it was kind of, in some of the responses, when we were talking about the long-term resident being there. So do they need to, and once again, how do we verify? But do they need to be there during the renting period to be part of this exemption?
No, they do not.
We're trying to follow RCW here, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. No, they do not. I think we've discussed that at length, and I think
Yeah.
the answer is no.
We have to have a contact phone number,
Yeah.
but no, the owner, resident doesn't have to be on the property during the time of renting.
Right.
Did I miss something? How do they have to have a contact phone number if they're exempt? Did I miss something?
Can you say that again?
They have to have a contact phone number.
If they're exempt, how do they have a contact phone number?
I'm sorry. You're right. They don't have to have, yeah, that's right. If they're exempt, they don't have to.
My concern
Yeah.
from the get-go has always been the safety aspect. So if I'm renting a short-term rental while I'm on vacation, I'm under the certain assumption that there's a level of safety. And if it's exempt, there's essentially no assurance of safety, including a contact number, whether they're at the game or whether they're in Florida. So I think that's what Jeremy was getting at, was functionally, whether it's exempt or not, and the operator is not there, what is the difference? Are we being the city as a welcoming entity to a visitor, not providing the highest level of safety simply because somebody may or may not be there because they live there 6 months out of the year or more?
I understand the concern of the discussion, but I think we've flogged that horse enough at this point.
I think it's worth having, but I don't know the answer. I don't know
Well,
how
but it comes up
to.
all the time, RJ, right? Hotel McCoy closed, they don't have a front desk staff on the most critical time. Everybody's sleeping at their hotel and nobody's there. What do? Right? Lots of hotels don't have a night staff that sits there the entire time, right? Lots of little boutique hotels, sometimes the owner's not even there, right? So there's lots of situations where somebody lodges in a place that's not their primary residence, and there's nobody on site, and they somehow survive, right?
A hotel has a certain level of safety attached to it.
Maybe.
My
house is way safer than a lot of hotels I've stayed at, so you're making a huge assumption there.
I'm going to make sure that I don't
Sprinklers.
travel to the hotels you're staying at.
I was on a cruise last weekend. We had a house sitter, because just what we always do. Person had never been to our house before. We'd met them once. They stayed at our house. We were on a cruise. We had no way she could have got in contact with us. She was on her own. Was she in a very, very incredibly unsafe, did she survive last week just by the skin of her teeth? I guess so. Really risky behavior. I don't know. I understand the question Jeremy's asking. We've belabored this point forwards, backwards, upside down. Jeremy hasn't been part of all the discussions. Maybe he should listen to all the meeting minutes, but boy, that ship has sailed.
We did talk about it at considerable length at the last meeting, and I think beat it to death with some of us agreeing with Jeremy's concern, but a majority not. as Brent said, we've moved on. Okay. So that's my answer to your third question, wherever it was. How is an owner-operator under the exemption that is absent during the rented period different from an absentee owner-operator? Probably not at all. But that's what the state law says, and that's what we've written into city code. Okay. Anybody else? City, that's what we've recommended that the
makes-
city council, or we will recommend that the council adopt.
Yeah, it makes sure there's somebody around most of the year to keep an eye on things. Make sure the hand railing's not broken, make sure the light bulbs all work.
Yeah. Nobody's, okay. Anybody else? On short-term rentals?
That you, as you all know, I haunt the Airbnb Reddit group, and they all have cameras.
Oh, yeah.
Hidden cameras.
Okay. All righty. Are we done on short-term rentals? All righty. The next item on the agenda is other business.
Well, can I ask, what's next for this
Oh, yeah, that's right.
topic
What's next?
For short-term
Yeah.
rentals?
So that's gonna be my question. If you're okay with everything we've talked about tonight, your next meeting will be the public hearing
Yes,
to make your recommendation.
yes.
Hopefully, there's not much change. I will not be here. I'll be at a conference. So, but it should theoretically be super simple. Public comment, discussion.
Yeah.
Hopefully, recommend approval.
Yes, we had a legislative public hearing this evening. We will have a legislative public hearing, we hope, in
Next
our
month.
April meeting to take up short-term rentals, and based on what happens then, we will likely recommend approval to the city council.
Can we
But-
discuss,
But we do have another, we have to have we will have a public hearing, a legislative public hearing on this matter, probably in April.
Can I be really selfish? If we're going to continue conversations, can we take like a 5-minute break for restrooms?
Oh, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will come back at, what time? Okay, we'll come back at 20 after.
Okay. Glad to hear it. Not some
Well, it's like
ski buddy.
infections from
No.
and then I get persons.
Angela, did you go to all your son still
Yeah, it's this time of year. It's actually the sun taxes sleeping.
Really?
If I sit out in the sun at the beginning of the year. I mean, I get enough sun too, but it's just like I'll burn a little bit someplace, and just like a little like that, and I'm sick for like 5 days. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's nuts. So I'm usually really careful. Friday, Saturday, just sat on the deck, and then just said forget it.
And you're paying a price.
Sure.
Thanks for coming tonight. You're I know, you're a very good public speaker. Yeah.
Thanks, Carl.
A little more skiing.
I saw it's 91 cents on Thursday. I looked at it. And Friday's free if you drive a Toyota. Your Tesla doesn't
Well,
count.
I have an Icon Pass, so it's always free. It's just a matter whether it's worthwhile driving up there.
That's the biggest thing for me, is it worthwhile to drive up there? And it's been tough this year to find. And then the few days where I could, where there was good, I just couldn't go. Tough year for us.
I don't watch the commercials.
Monday or so ago, it was right after the snow, and that was really good. That was the best, but then they lost it instantly. So. took me a while to figure out, actually my wife had to show me, to make that button, so I could copy and paste that the HTML code that gives you into that site, because I don't use any of the browsers that require it. Personally, I think they're not very secure. Yeah, I usually do too, but this time, well, this time because I couldn't scroll down, so I couldn't see all this stuff. I didn't know what it
And I'd be like, Fred, this is my fun, everybody was 10 minutes ahead. You know, there's still, I still have problems. You know, okay. But,
We're gonna use this platform, I don't know.
yeah.
So we have to switch to laptops.
I'm just gonna keep, I'm not gonna use it, I'm just gonna keep using, getting the stuff off the public platform like I have before, is that?
You're going to the platform. Yeah, but it didn't have all the. Yeah, I didn't see it, because I went to the public hearing. See, this one, right here's regular meeting. Just, this one has.
Oh, this was February's meeting.
She is very messy when she eats, but she takes up her.
What is she going to study?
No, it's probably, yeah, no, you have to.
Yeah.
Is that a verb?
That's not even there.
No, because that's not the new URL. It's a new URL that has the diligent did it.
Engineers
You have to use the URL.
But they have a, okay, that's the one I cut and pasted. Okay, no wonder I said lost. Because I keep going to their website and it's
Yeah, it's different.
no, I did that one, so that's in here. So here's the third one.
When the state was one of the overpasses between,
This is the community.
but there was a deep one, and she started it with a chair, and worked her way down to take the soil samples.
That was the only that went to it.
Eruptions over the centuries. That's,
Yeah, I just copied and pasted.
yeah, that's kind of a mistake.
And that's,
Well, I did my master's thesis on fruit.
But none of these icons are in.
Kind of, but I
yeah, that is.
Where's Silver Plum?
See, that was, I went to the public. Oh, I went to the. Yeah, I find that email.
did he ever do a class?
That was from Anya, and she sent it,
I had it when I worked.
yeah, she sent it Thursday. Yeah, no, no.
I said, I didn't get that at all.
Oh, no, this was before. This was after you. Yeah, after you got. Because I got that. Yeah. She said this.
I don't. Okay. Okay, if we can come back to order, please. So we've concluded short-term rentals. We're expecting next month a legislative public hearing.
So I have a question, though, about,
1 second. Okay. There's just other conversation going on,
sorry.
and it's just,
I have a question, though, about what this will look like in how it's packaged up and how it goes to city council with our recommendation. So like the legislative hearing that we had earlier today, you guys will have a draft motion with lots of whereases in it and everything with a
Correct.
decision, right?
yep, you'll have your resolution next month.
Okay. And then, just because there's been so many conversations and drama or whatever around this issue, are you anticipating that we're going to provide anything else to city council? Are you guys going to make a presentation or a PowerPoint or anything else? Or is it just going to be, here's the resolution, here's the red line, recommendation to approval? How do you see this going to city council?
If I'm in town, I anticipate going to that city council meeting because I want the city council to see somebody on the planning commission and realize that there are 7 people sitting here who have gone through all of this. That's my expectation. I might not be in town, that's a possibility. So in answer to Brent's question,
It
Were
would
you
most,
anticipate actually presenting or just sitting in the
yeah,
audience?
presenting,
Okay.
talking to the council.
so I assume city council's keeping their current business study session format. So it'd most likely first go as the study session to discuss.
Oh, okay.
And then the next business meeting would be where they adopt it.
Oh, is that what they're doing with every topic now? They're doing a study session
so.
and then?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of the intent of, so if you watched last night,
Yeah.
or the first meeting of the month is business, air quotes, right? The second meeting, later in the month, is a study session, and the intent is to have a format where the council members sit down here and you have a more casual, relaxed, lengthy conversation than as if you were presenting at the podium and you want to keep it brief so that the council would have a better understanding of what you're going to present subsequently at the next meeting or what's going to be on the agenda of the next meeting.
That study session is the only people that council discuss the things with city staff? Or do they bring in other people as well, like would John or somebody come
Well,
in?
last night we had a home builder,
Okay.
so it doesn't have to be just city staff.
That probably has to be arranged ahead of time. That's not like anybody here want to come talk to us?
No, it'd need to be arranged ahead of time.
Yeah.
There's still a public comment period. But yes, if you want to come be part of the presentation, that would need to be done ahead of time.
All right.
Okay. Next item is other business. Anybody have any other business?
Yes.
I have a question about the new platform, the Diligent. So I got the email that I needed to create an account. Do I really need to create an account?
So we've been going back and forth on this.
Okay.
So far, Anna and I, because we really also haven't gotten any training, have kind of came to the conclusion the only reason you would need an account is when we send out the, like, here's the agenda to members, which is what you are for the planning commission, you are members. You then get sent an agenda that you can have your own personal annotations on, but you have to log in to do that. If you just want to look at the public agenda and do notes how you currently do, because Board Docs didn't have this function, technically no.
Okay.
The one you get emailed, you would have to log in with, so you'd have to then go to Diligent, go to the planning commission, go to the public agenda.
For simplicity, don't get an account.
Okay.
It's not that bad.
Okay, okay.
I use an iPad, and I could not, from the
Yeah, you
one
can't
that I'm
access
on,
it.
I could not-
Yeah. No, that's okay.
I used an iPad, and from the one you have to log into, I could not figure out to get how to export the documents. So I went to the public one and just downloaded the big 276-page document, which
Okay.
is easier
That's the easier way.
than it used to be.
Well, I got the email to create an account, came through before anything else. And I said, what is this spam? And I blocked it and deleted it. And then and then I got your email saying create an account. I'm like, uh-oh.
No, he had to get added. Yeah. Well, so we also didn't know that no one got added to the new system when we first published the agenda.
Okay.
So then we were like, oh, no one got notified. So then we added you all, because we just got added as staff. So we
Yeah,
were just like,
okay.
oh, okay, here's the process. And now we're finding out like all these things we thought were done weren't actually done yet.
Okay. So not critical that we have accounts right now.
No.
Continue to use just the public one for now, and then we'll see what happens with this.
Yep, and then
Okay.
we can send you the link. There's a way to subscribe where you get so like when we publish it, we get notify members, subscribers. And so like, this is now how like the media and other community members can get notifications of when the meetings go out, because we're not sending the previous email with board docs like we used to, like, oh,
Right.
here's the agenda, to BCCing everyone. So you could go on and subscribe to Planning Commission, so when we publish it, you get notification that way.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
And that's to the public agenda. It wouldn't be the one you can annotate.
Okay.
But we can just wait for you to send the electronic mail message that you've always been sending.
No.
That's what it's called.
No.
You're going to know when it's posted because it's the same time as it's been before.
So we won't be sending, it's not we. Anna won't be sending the previous email anymore.
Won't be sending?
It's done through the system now. So
Okay.
you either have to make the account so you're notified as the member, or subscribe for the public agenda. And we can send you the link for the subscription, because then you can do it for any of the commissions you want. And then anytime something with that gets published, you'll get notified.
Okay.
Okay, so I have to sign up somehow as a member of this commission? If I'm going to get notified that documents are available?
We'll work on it, John.
Okay.
For simplicity, don't sign up for anything.
Okay.
Don't listen to him. You need to do at least one thing. And we will work on that.
Okay. Do we have any other
I
business?
do. I am moving to Hood River July, August, so
No,
July
you're
will
not.
probably be my last meeting.
No, you're
So
not.
hopefully we'll get this through.
Wow. You want to stay on board?
Boo.
I haven't taken that up yet, but I'm going to ski at Hood, so that's the impetus, to be closer to skiing. Sorry.
Season pass, nice.
Pullman, yeah, I've been traveling every weekend for skiing, for like 20 years. Yeah, I'm ready to be 45 minutes away. So
Heck.
I don't know what the process is for getting like applications, but we might want to start thinking about that for a seventh person. Maybe not we, but you guys. The house is already bought. We have a house.
Oh, okay. You gonna
So
rent
it's
out a
been-
room?
We rented it out for 3 years, but it was a long-term rental, and we took very good care of it.
Okay. Do we have any other business?
Yes. So I've been going through your bylaws, which ended up being a much bigger thing than I thought it was going to be, just because there's various inconsistencies. But I had a couple questions about some of the things that are in there that I don't think we actually do. Because one of them is for, well, now I have to find it. So changing order of business, we had a whole old business section. We don't do that. So changing it to be what it is, roll call, approval of minutes, regular agenda, other business adjournment. We've done that with all the other
No,
ones.
forthcoming meetings as well. You didn't say
Yes.
forthcoming, okay.
I didn't have that one, but yes. Votes on all final decisions, but at public hearings will be by roll call vote. Typically, it's just motion second, all in favor. I guess we could start doing all public hearing votes by roll call.
Well, no, we have, just as we did tonight, we have had roll call votes on all.
But not on all. So like when we had a rezone a couple of years ago, last year, maybe it was a year and a half, it was just motion second, all in favor.
Well, if we have a legislative public hearing or a quasi-judicial public hearing, we do vote on a roll call for the decision. We always have, since 1995.
I think that's correct. We don't do roll call for like meeting minutes and stuff, and we don't do roll call for findings of fact, conclusions, but then we do a roll call on decisions.
That's right.
And I think that's a good practice.
Is
So we'll leave that, okay.
Okay.
And just once again, going back to verification. So section 10 is the review of the record. And so it's saying if we continue a public hearing, you weren't at public hearing number 1, but you came to public hearing number 2, you're supposed to review the minutes, the recording, all previously submitted documentation, or you can't be a part of conversation 2.
That's right.
We don't verify this, so someone could say, yeah, but they haven't, so why don't we just take it out?
I think there should be a quiz.
We could quiz you.
Well, I'm not sure, I don't know what the state statute says, if there's a state requirement involved in this. But
I can
again,
check.
that's always been the case. If somebody is part of, as you said, if somebody is part of a public hearing that's continued, then only the people who were at the first part of it can vote. And if somebody wants to participate, then yes, that's always been the requirement. You have to listen to, and I think somebody did that once, a long time ago, but it's always been the requirement. And actually, considering the nature of a quasi-judicial public hearing in particular, I don't think we could do anything different, because the requirement is you have to consider only information that's presented at the hearing, so that everybody knows what information everybody on the commission has. I think the implication of that is you have all of the information before you vote. If somebody missed the initial meeting, that person doesn't have all of the information, not even close. So I think that's the rationale, that only people voting have all of the information and only all of the information. And
I think I
that's the
missed your
reason.
question, though.
So this is
How would you
saying,
verify that, or are you proposing to change that?
I'm just proposing to take it out, because this is just saying
No.
if you were excused from a portion of a quasi-judicial hearing, then you cannot participate in the process going forward until said member has listened to the entire verbatim recording of that portion of the hearing from which said member was excused and has reviewed all exhibits which may have been presented to the commission during that portion of the hearing. We don't verify that that's happened.
No, but I
We
thought
just
we did
assume you
requirement.
did.
Yes, we do, because the person who, yeah, because if you listen, the only way you can, oh, I take that back. At the time that this happened, the only way you could listen to it was to go to City Hall and listen to it. Yeah, that's a difference. That's no longer the case. But again, just as we ask the appearance of fairness questions, we're asking people, you know, this is a quasi-judicial matter. Did you listen to the whole meeting before? We're just relying on people to be honest with us.
So we
And-
could add a sentence, say, at the start of the continuation of the hearing, the chair shall ask that member to affirm that they have done that.
Yeah, then it would be on the record. Yeah,
But I think we should keep the mechanism so that somebody could miss one and come back in and be part of it. I think that could be critical even for having a quorum or something.
Yeah, it also means that if somebody was at the first meeting and can't make the second meeting, that person isn't going to vote. So, yeah, it can be an issue with the quorum. Yeah, I see your point now. I'm sorry I missed it. But, yeah, just it's requiring the chair to ask the person to affirm that he or she listened to the recording.
Easy. And then the other kind of major change under meetings, the regular meeting, saying the regular meeting will be held the fourth Wednesday at 6 p.m. Then we're changing from 7 to 6, if everyone's still okay with 6.
I thought we were doing 5:30. Well, okay, is it 6? Okay,
Like, that's what I remembered.
okay. yeah,
When would
that's
this
fine.
start? The next meeting? 6?
No. We'll vote on bylaws at the next meeting.
Okay, so maybe in May.
And then, let's see, April. So then May would be the first one.
Okay.
And then we're adding an additional, except November and December, where the regular meeting will be held the third Wednesday of the month for that Thanksgiving, Christmas issue.
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Okay?
Fantastic.
Something I would like to see, Ariel, and I don't know if
Yeah.
this needs to be in the bylaws, or somewhere else. I like how city council, on their agenda, when it's an agenda item, then there's a little kind of paragraph about what it is, and then the mayor often reads that out loud verbatim. What I'm thinking about is, I'm thinking about myself as vice chair filling in for John sometimes, and he's been doing this so long, and he's pretty good at it, and I forget certain things, and he does little things that I really like, and I try to remember. So like one of the things that John always does, and I always appreciate, and it's not written down anywhere so far that I know, is under new business, John always says, does staff have any new business for us? Does any member of the commission have any new business for us? Does any member of the public have any new business for us? I like how John does that. And the couple times I've ran a meeting, I've forgotten to do that. I just like those words. So I'm just wondering if there would be a way to, things like that with the agenda, like even those specific things, just kind of spell out. You see what I'm saying?
How is it different than other business?
It specifies an order and specifies asking the staff, asking the commission, asking the audience.
It's just to guide, it's to guide the chairperson, whoever is leading that meeting, on kind of the procedures and everything. I don't know, I'm not sure it needs to be in bylaws, but maybe it's a cheat sheet or something. I don't know. I think we run pretty good meetings. I think just like Robert's Rules of Order and everything else, I think John's kind of a Jedi master at this stuff, and I think our meetings are good because of it. And sooner or later, we're going to put him in a retirement home and not let him get a chair anymore, and then somebody else is going to have to do this. I'm just wanting to kind of document that legacy knowledge.
And this should just be how other organizations I'm a part of, normally that's like at the beginning, after you start the meeting, it's, does anyone have any changes to the agenda? And then it's a motion, a second, and then a change.
Right, okay, yep.
I'm not sure how that, and I can ask that, and I can look into like MRSC, how that changes because of OPMA.
Mm-hmm.
And since we have the posted agenda, adding new business, how that all works together.
Okay. We don't really need to solve it now. I was just thinking about, because you started asking about the bylaws list these things out, but it doesn't really match our agenda, it's not really what we do, and that's just one of the things making me think a little bit about how we do our agendas and meetings, stuff that I personally, maybe it's just John writing a cheat sheet for whoever fills in for him now and then. I'm good.
Mr. Chair. So along that same line, Brent, let me just carry it even further. Let's assume that neither John or you are chair or vice chair. We are running pretty good meetings right now. It'd be a shame to lose all that knowledge about just the functionality. So while Brent may be thinking he misses a few things that John does, I'm thinking that if neither of them are here and we have to elect a new chair and vice chair, man, that would be really helpful, because then we would lose all that legacy knowledge if we don't have this a little bit more detail on the script or the cheat sheet that allows us to continue to run the meeting in an efficient way that we're running right now.
I like to think I pay attention during the meetings, but I don't recall John asking if people have like stuff for the regular agenda.
It's like an other business thing?
Yeah.
He's normally other business. He's like, oh, does anyone have any other
Was it other
business? Does
business?
staff?
Not new business, yeah, other business.
It's other business.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we could, I think it's city council has like a section where it's, oh, does anyone have any like future agenda items?
I'm not opposed to that.
I think the problem with future agenda items for this commission is that things can arise that change the future agenda items, including only having one small matter and canceling a meeting, or it's been, I don't know how long it's been since we've had a preliminary plat. It's been a long time, but imagine having CIP and a preliminary plat on the same night. It might push something else. It might push, for example, a discussion of the bylaws back by a month. So, that's why I don't like,
Well, it's not saying the next meeting.
yeah.
It's just a future meeting. Because if
Yeah.
it's like research-based, depending on how much is going on, staff might not have time by the next meeting to do all
Right.
that research. But we know at a future meeting, whenever it's done, you would like this thing on the agenda. I'm not saying we have to or not. It could be another business. Or as it comes up in, our general conversations, like, oh, we'll do more research on that. But it's just, that is something that city council does that
I love it.
kind of sounds like where that was going with the, does anyone have any business?
I'd love an official opportunity to be like, please make sure parking is on the agenda soon. Now,
It's more
to
than just my
John's point,
whiteboard
like,
downstairs.
Yeah, I think it's wise, it doesn't have to be the next meeting, like, we don't know what's going on, but there have been times when it's like, man, I'd love to talk about this. How do I get that on the agenda?
Yeah.
And there are mechanisms for that, but this would be another one.
So for like environmental resilience, I'm also their staff. And so that's in their agenda. So we go through like, roll call, minutes, regular, other, and then we talk future agenda items. And then we go into upcoming meetings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Change
Okay.
a little bit.
We will add that. So after other business, because obviously agenda items come up during other business.
City council has a little bit more structured way how things can become a agenda item, like staff can make an agenda item, the mayor can make an agenda item. One lone wolf city council member cannot make an agenda item. It takes two, right? So would we want to consider something else? Or, would we want any kind of structure around, like city council?
Like we
No,
need a
no,
second.
I think, again, you're solving a problem that doesn't exist.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I think you're piggybacking off what I said, right? So it's like, if I said I want to talk about parking, but nobody else did,
Right.
like, should I be allowed to actually make that request?
I think you get bullied by the rest of them to just decide not to do it.
That's true. They have the opportunity to talk me out of it.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can we take a 5-minute break to take Joe out in the hall and beat some sense into?
No. No, no.
we'll just cut that part of the recording.
Okay, okay, do we have any other comments? Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, do we have any other items on changing the bylaws? I'm going to suggest that we include in our bylaws a statement that we expect to take public comments at any meeting for any agenda item, unless we specify otherwise. Not sure exactly how to say that, but I think people who come here to these meetings expect to be able to speak. And I know people who have been to the city council several times and are now afraid to go to a council meeting because they think they might stand up and the mayor tell them, no, this is not the proper time to be talking to us. I think we want to specify in our meetings that we expect to take public testimony on any item during the course of a meeting. We might have requirements for public testimony, but we expect to take public testimony on any agenda item.
We could add it to, what is it, Article 3? Yeah, Article 3 is just meetings, so we could have a new section that's public comment.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, does anybody have any other business? Okay, forthcoming meetings, we have meetings scheduled on April 22nd, May 27, and June 24. Does anybody know of dates that you will not be available?
I'm probably out for June,
Okay,
but I may not know for sure until June.
okay. Anybody else?
June 23rd, I'll be gone.
June 24 is the meeting?
I'm sorry, June 24 will be gone.
Okay, so we have 2 people missing on June 24th. That could be a problem. All righty. Next item is adjournment. Do we have any motions?
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. I detect consensus. We're adjourned.
No roll call?
No.
It's not a public hearing.
That's yours.
Is that one mine? No, I have that one. I think that one's yours. This one more column.